Now the Murong brothers had two completely different thoughts intertwining in their minds. One thought was the evergreen bitterness, while the other was the pure love of a night listening to spring rain. These two completely opposing thoughts and emotions were like water and fire, yet at this moment, they blended together. As their master, the Murong brothers not only didn't feel a split sensation of ice and fire, but instead, their sea of consciousness was stimulated to crystal clarity. This clarity, the Murong brothers believed, was akin to Duan Yun's extraordinary wisdom, making them feel terrifyingly powerful at this moment. Heaven and earth, sun and moon drill. They raised both blades, and their true chi shook the air, making it flow like water, forming the shape of two wings. The next moment, their entire being drilled out. Yes, they drilled out like a drill. Following them, their sword chi drilled out as well. Their sword chi was green turning to purple on one side, and pure white like snow on the other. Thus, at a glance, the spinning face of the Murong brothers was half as pure as snow, and half as ferocious as if wearing a green hat, embodying both celestial and demonic sides. Li Jianma, seeing this, dared not be careless, and huddled behind his turtle shell, sealed yet open. Crack, crack, crack. The spinning Murong brothers spun very quickly, and in the blink of an eye, they spun over with double blades, crashing into the bright turtle shell, creating a terrifying bang. Although Li Jianma's feet were rooted into the ground like nails, due to the ferocity of the Murong brothers spinning, he had to retreat, dragging a long furrow in the ground like an old ox plowing a field. At this moment, the onlookers stopped screaming, not daring to take a breath, because this had already reached the most tense and dangerous moment. In the eyes of knowledgeable Jianghu people, this was the ultimate offensive versus the ultimate defense. However, more people believed that although the Murong brothers seemed overwhelmingly fierce, causing Li Jianma to retreat repeatedly, they were actually at a disadvantage. Because anyone could see that the Murong brothers' energy consumption was huge, and as long as Li Jianma held his ground, he could remain rested and ready. Furthermore, he excelled in defensive counterattacks, which was seen by Duan Yun as bounce back. But at this moment, the aura around the Murong brothers was still soaring. Electric poison dragon drill. Their figure slanted, spinning and drilling in from the side, with two distinctly different colored sword chi also forming a drill, more aggressive in momentum. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Ting, ting, ting. For a moment, the dense and alarming sound of blade and shell collision filled the air, sparks flying. Several front-row bloodthirsty spectators, not strong enough, were shocked internally by the sound, spitting blood. This was still not enough. Suddenly, only to see the double blades spin, and the electric light surged. From the spinning sword chi, coiling electric light emerged. Duan Yun had long discovered the power of demon electricity in his body before understanding love unlimited. The Murong brothers, as unparalleled sword Dao geniuses, were always a bit behind Duan Yun. Thus, even though they reached that level, their enlightenment always came a bit later. But at this moment, wrapped in hatred and pure love, they possessed an ability nearly akin to extraordinary wisdom, and thus discovered the secret of demon electricity. Thus, the electric poison dragon drill truly became charged. Only to hear the persistent buzzing of electricity, Li Jianma's body trembled, and the next moment, the buzzing sound was accompanied by a crackling sound, bringing with it a burnt smell. As Li Jianma was electrified and urinated, it was like urination with added electricity, electrifying him even more fiercely. If it wasn't for his wife liking cats instead of children back then, causing him to undergo a vasectomy to show loyalty, the reaction might have been even greater. Li Jianma strengthened his defensive stance, his expression still rather calm, yet his expression changed again at this moment, because he discovered that the Murong brothers' electric poison dragon drill had changed direction. If the opponent was drilling horizontally before, now it was drilling diagonally. Even their bodies seemed to float upwards in the electric light, intending to drill vertically. It can only be said that the higher the position, the more poisonous the drill. With a loud bang, Li Jianma was drilled to slide backwards, crashing into a rock with a bang, his expression filled with pain. Ziyu shouted upon seeing this. "Drill to the side! That's stone for the dam." The Murong brothers said nothing, continuing to drill relentlessly. They wanted to breach the opponent's center line. When they were still young, their grandmother told them that if they encounter an extremely stubborn and defensive opponent, try attacking the center line. The center line is the largest gateway to a person's defense. As long as a crack is opened, one can forcefully flood through. Li Jianma also realized this. His center line mustn't be breached. But Li Jianma found himself unable to prevent this. Because the Murong brothers' poison dragon drill was too fierce, while his person was still on the rock, the granite behind him had already shattered with a bang, full of penetrating power. At this moment, the Murong brothers' body paused suddenly. Li Jianma's eyes lit up, and Duan Yun was also taken aback. Was the electric power insufficient? Between experts, a duel is often a matter of an instant. Li Jianma, as the utmost elite among turtles, the first among this group of turtles, even praised by bloodthirsty storyteller as the best swordsman in the world, naturally had extraordinary strength and experience. He seized this gap fiercely, launching the bright turtle sword counter. All along, the reason for his invincibility was that while no one could break his defense, he could rely on the rebound of the bright turtle shell to launch a fatal counterattack. This should be the first time he had been hiding in a turtle shell for so long, and he once thought he could not find an opportunity to counter. Unexpectedly, the opportunity arrived. The insidious sword of the green turtle emerged from beneath the turtle shell, striking directly at Murong's groin. This position was precisely where Murong's dual sabers were hardest to defend. The counterattack needed to be ruthless, needed to be decisive. "Gui, you're really going for it." Suddenly, Murong's voice rang out, making Li Jianma's heart tremble, instinctively feeling fear. Is this a trap? In almost no time, Murong's previously stationary body began to spin wildly again, the electric light more intense than before. It turned out this was Murong's lure the snake out of the cave technique, and because the performance was so believable, it even deceived Duan Yun. Duan Yun couldn't help but exclaim, "Damn it!" With a clap, the swirling electric light had already wrapped around Li Jianma's green turtle sword. At this moment, Li Jianma wanted to withdraw his sword, but it was too late. The electric light spread upward, already entangling his sword. In Murong's eyes, it was as if he had caught the turtle's head. "Take that for your sneak attack." The electric light roared upward with a crash, and in an instant, Li Jianma's sword flew from his hand. Li Jianma tried to press down on the turtle shell with all his might, trying to fill the gap as much as possible, but it was already too late. In the instant the sword left his hand, Murong's dual sabers followed seamlessly into the sword body like lightning. With two explosive sounds, the dual sabers slashed through, turning stone into powder. Li Jianma was defeated like a collapsing mountain, retreating dozens of steps, and shouted, "Why?" As soon as he finished speaking, his body fell backward. It wasn't until now that two saber marks appeared on his chest in a cross shape. Li Jianma was defeated. In the Battle of the Turtles, it was Yuzhu Manor's turtle that came out on top. On the side of Bai Lake, the cheers had long become a continuous roar. In the heroic land, who didn't know the equally famous young hero Murong, alongside young hero Duan? In fact, Murong also had a nickname called the equally famous young hero, which was actually a sarcastic and mocking title. Yes, around Wangchun City, everyone knew Duan Juxia was the real deal, and the so-called equally famous was full of water. But today, young hero Murong proved his worth with actual performances. Although there was still a gap with Duan Juxia, he was frighteningly strong. What, #1 sword in the world? Can't even get past young hero Murong, yet wants to challenge Duan Juxia. The coward is never able to make it to the big stage. No, I think the coward isn't fit to be called a person, just call him a pseudo-man. Over there was cheering and joy, while the crowd of cowards was in mourning, and the Jianghu spectators who came from all over had mixed feelings. Those in Jianghu were joyful since many loved the spectacle. They didn't care who won or lost, as long as it was thrilling, fearing it wouldn't come to blows, while those already discontent with Duanyun felt differently. They considered old demon Duan's wicked deeds beyond compare, believing any setback for the old demon is beneficial to Jianghu, particularly those who loathed the heroic land, like the bloodthirsty storytellers. Painful, truly painful. The fall of the coward hero is truly a misfortune for Jianghu, a bloodthirsty storyteller said mournfully. He initially wanted to fan the flames further, inciting the old demon is severely injured, quickly attack, but found it meaningless. Today, they wanted to bring down old demon Duan, yet they couldn't even pass the Murong demon's challenge, leaving them feeling powerless. Li Jianma lay on the ground, his chest meridians slashed by Murong's sword chi, unable to muster any strength. He was like a turtle stripped of its shell, left with no resistance. Yet he still didn't die, continuing to crawl in a certain direction. Over there, 7 cats watched their master with some confusion, drawing closer. The leading cat seemed to realize something, meowed once, and urgently rushed over. The remaining cats quickly followed suit. As man and cats drew closer, the surroundings fell silent. Many onlookers moved to tears at the scene. Between life and death, he still had his cats. With a swish, just as man and cats were about to unite, Murong decisively struck. In one blow taking 7 lives, the cats toppled to the ground. In that instant, Li Jianma's eyes nearly popped out. Then he screamed, "My cats! My wife's cats! You!" Murong was startled and said, "So these were that dead sow's cats. No wonder they were so ugly." With that, he swung his sword for another strike. Thus, the cat's body, which was originally in 2 pieces, became 4 pieces. Achi, alu awu. Woo woo woo. My dear treasure. Murong demon. You will die a terrible death. The Murong brothers kicked the person to the ground and questioned, "Who are you calling a demon?" At this moment, only the sound of something breaking through the air was heard, and the remaining turtle warriors finally couldn't sit still and pressed forward. A middle-aged woman screamed, "You are heartless and insane. Cats are so cute, yet you commit such a cruel act." This woman was a rare female warrior among the turtle warriors and a childless cat-loving woman. Facing the Murong brothers' cruel act towards the cat, she was the first to stand up. The Murong brothers frowned and questioned, "This cowardly man is so insidious and vicious. The cat he raises must not be a good one. If no one takes care of it in the future and it bites or scratches someone, will you be responsible?" The woman shouted, "I don't care about people. I only know that the cat is innocent. You are an unforgivable demon." Her words aroused the fervor of the turtle community. Yes, just now their leader Li Jianma was defeated, their morale was low, and some were even scared. But at this moment, when they stood together and saw the cute cat being slaughtered, their anger blazed fiercely. They didn't care if people died, but the cat was innocent. For the sake of the cat, they were furious. At this moment, the cat-loving turtle woman shouted loudly, "Turtle comrades, don't talk about martial world's ethics with such evil demons. Let's all go up together." She shouted the loudest, but involuntarily retreated a few steps, while the turtle comrades were clearly provoked and rushed forward in a frenzy. The Murong brothers were startled and quickly swung their swords to strike. But among the cowardly men, there were no lack of Grandmaster-level experts. Now, the Murong brothers faced nearly 100 enemies and quickly found themselves at a disadvantage. However, the sword in his hand never stopped. Endless hatred. The green sword light swept across, hitting many cowardly men directly. After being hit, their faces turned red and green. "Ah, madam, go and play with other men, no? No, don't. This will go against the madam's wish. I feel terrible. I'm going to die." For a moment, the cowardly men were in constant pain. Someone was the first to react, imitating a previous cowardly man's experience, and with a bang, smashed a bird. The next moment, he cheered, "Don't be afraid, everyone. As long as you get rid of the vital point, it's fine." Bang, bang, bang. For a moment, The sound of bird smashing was continuous. One fallen cowardly man screamed, "I was castrated by Madam 10 years ago. What do I do without a vital point?" The cat-loving turtle woman also wailed, "I don't have one either. What do I do?" Morong brothers were being attacked in groups and couldn't hold on, saying, "Ah, Duan, I'm being beaten by the turtle crowd." Relay, relay. Duan Yun and his party had already stepped forward. Duan Yun waved his hand, saying, "It's time to end this farce." As soon as he finished speaking, the Jade Pearl heroes and a group of working martial artists and Mo sect elders rushed towards the cowardly men. In the heroic land, fighting in groups is really like lighting a lantern in a latrine. At this moment, only a thunderous voice was heard, "I'm here to help you." Behind the cowardly men, a man charged in. He struck with both fists, veins bulging all over, and his fists were incredibly powerful, killing 2 cowardly men with just 2 punches. Mo sect elder Li Dakin exclaimed, "Isn't that Li Kuan?" Li Kuan is awake. Li Kuan was the man who was hunted down by the Thunder God and Mother and had red lightning channeled into his body to warn Duan Yun. He was seriously injured, especially his brain. Even though Duan Yun managed to save his life through certain means, he remained in a coma, no different from a vegetable. This was the man whom neither Duan Yun nor Li Dakin, the 2 most renowned divine doctors in Wangchun City, could awaken. At this moment, however, he was awake and came to kill the enemy. In a sense, you could say the cowardly men awakened him. With so many cowardly men gathered, how could the Turtle Slayer possibly sleep? Kill! The bloodthirsty storyteller watched this scene, his eyes already shedding tears of blood. It's over. The expert cowardly men they've worked so hard to provoke are going to be completely wiped out. Old Demon Duan is really too wicked. No, this Morong demon is a big wicked villain too. On this day, a rare gang fight broke out outside Yushu town. Ever since the group of heroes from Yuzhu Manor took charge of Wangchun City, the security here has always been good. Even if there were fights, they were mostly duels between masters, rarely group clashes. This time the cowards gathered together to slay the evil demon, targeting those heretics who showed disrespect to women. Without any hesitation, the self-styled hero cowards launched a righteous gang fight against the Morong brothers. On the heroic land, who among the heroes of Yuzhu Manor ever feared a gang fight? Thus, the heroes and those martial men digging ditches together demonstrated to the cowards what a truly righteous gang fight is. It was a one-sided crush. Whether in numbers or in the strength of the masters, the cowards by the lakeside wailed across the fields, 100 cowards crying together. Of course, Duan Yun didn't kill them all. He had already thought it through, first locking these cowards up, allowing their beloved women to come redeem them. This is a test for both the cowards and the turtle women. If the turtle women are truly willing to spend big money to redeem them, he would spare them. If they're unwilling, then those turtle women must die too. Some cowards were destined to die because they had been abandoned by women for years, yet to prevent their abandoned women from being influenced by villains like old Demon Duan, they still gathered here, hoping to do something for the lovers who had abandoned them, to move them. Unfortunately, they were all going to die. For such despicable cowards among the cowards, Duan Yun didn't let them die easily. The sword chi of the 10-layered spring rain pierced into their bodies, causing the cowards unbearable pain. Some cowards had, from the bottom of their hearts, wanted to bear children in place of the women they loved, to spare them suffering, and at this moment, they were experiencing that feeling. The sensation of every cell in their body being pregnant and giving birth made them fully experience this feeling. This execution took place at the market in Wangchun City, which also served as a warning. Dare to challenge the heroes, dare to cause trouble on the heroic land, and this is the consequence. The cries of the first batch of cowards lasted for 3 days and nights before stopping, tiring the spectators who came to watch. It's well known that the market in Wangchun City has always been a popular spot, and whenever there's an execution, the onlookers are plenty. Some, having gotten the news in advance, even set up mats early by the roadside to ensure a good spot. This time, quite a few who had set up mats fled. Watching turtles suffer was indeed enjoyable, but too much watching was tiring. The miserable state of the first batch of cowards terrified the second batch. This group of cowards still had hope. That is, they had someone coming to redeem them. Unfortunately, the result was that among the dozens of cowards, including experts from sex, not a single wife came to redeem them. It's worth noting that many of them were incited by their own women to come find trouble with Duan Yun. Duan Yun extended the deadline by 3 days, but still, no one came to redeem them, forcing him to sigh, "You truly disappoint me." He couldn't help but conclude that, in the eyes of the turtle women, cowards simply weren't human, not even comparable to pigs, dogs, or ordinary animals. After all, some childless cat-loving turtle women might even be more attentive to their cats. Duan Yun ordered, "Since no one is redeeming you, I can only send you on your way. Of course, those women not redeeming you, I'll send them along too, so you can reunite in the underworld, continuing your lock." "No! Please, no!" The cries of the cowards echoed, but young hero Duan's sword chi was merciless. The cowards fell one by one, and the rest were to go kill the turtle women. In fact, this task was bothersome, as the turtle women lived all over, many quite far from Wangchun City. To kill them required traveling widely. However, within Yuzhu Manor, there were plenty willing to take on this task. Evidently, the people of Yuzhu Manor loved the phrase, "Though distant, they must be punished." Finally, Duan Yun decided to entrust the task to Little Yin, Lei Ying, and his first disciple Tang Wanwan. The three were eager to contribute to the heroic land, and they all had ambitions to climb to the top. After all, aside from Tang Wanwan, the other two still held the status of servants and needed to step further to be considered people at Yuzhu Manor. Yes, Yuzhu Manor currently had 4 levels, respectively: livestock, servants, people, and heroes, and they were in urgent need of change. The three received the task and soon set off. Actually, the Murong brothers also wanted to go but were stopped, as everyone agreed they might not be able to complete the task. The Murong brothers were unconvinced. After all, they were young heroes equal to Duan Yun. How could they not complete such a little task? But Feng Linger and the others' reasoning was simple. If the turtle women were ugly, the Murong brothers would definitely complete the task perfectly. However, if they were somewhat attractive, things might not be so certain. Even though the Murong brothers repeatedly emphasized that their dual blades were unfeeling, it was no use. Because anyone could see that if they were truly unfeeling, they wouldn't have mastered such a sword technique. It's simply that a romantic swordsman is a romantic swordsman. Facing beautiful women is his natural weakness. Feng Linger watched them leave and said, "Among them, 2 were forcibly captured by you? Aren't you afraid they'll run away?" She was naturally referring to Lei Ying and Little Yin, both of whom were his captives, turned into mounts by him, barely considered people now, perhaps hating him to the bone, and always longing to escape, but under his tyranny, they dared not. Now giving them such a task is undoubtedly the best opportunity to escape. Duan Yun said, "It doesn't matter, at least the 2 of them have been influenced by my boundless heroic chi for so long. Even if they escape, they shouldn't commit evil deeds. Of course, if they do commit evil, then naturally they must be pursued and punished, no matter how far." Duan Yun's tone was relaxed because he was very confident. He was confident that the 2 wouldn't run away. Even if they did, they would become good people or even female knights. After all, in his understanding, he had already filled them with heroic spirit. As long as they are good people and female knights, it doesn't matter whether they are under his control or not. For him, the heroic land is still too narrow. Once he finishes the matters at hand, he intends to deeply infuse heroic spirit into the entire Yun state. If everyone in this world were heroes, then where in the world wouldn't be a heroic land? In the morning, Duan Yun was studying the map he got from Wei Wuxing's belly. This map detailed various tombs, and according to Wei Wuxing, these numerous tombs were just the tip of the iceberg underground, indicating the considerable scale of the underground martial world. According to Duan Yun's understanding, the Source Palace noble he killed earlier should also be considered part of the underground martial world. Because they are secretive, unknown to the world, yet possess the power to change the martial arts realm. Wei Wuxing's map specifically mentioned a person, Ghost Mother. In fact, Ghost Mother should be called Ghost Mother Injia. Ghost Mother Injia's unmatched martial arts skills all came from underground. Unlike Wei Wuxing, who learned from various tomb raids, Ghost Mother Injia had deeper ties with the underground. According to Wei Wuxing's description, Ghost Mother Injia was once just a prostitute from a brothel, and not a particularly attractive one, the lowest of the low. By some stroke of fate, she went underground and found a river. Wei Wuxing wasn't sure what the river was. He could only refer to it as the netherworld. After going to that river, the ordinary prostitute mastered unparalleled martial arts and became the fearsome Ghost Mother Injia of the martial world. Wei Wuxing had communicated with Ghost Mother Injia during his tomb raiding adventures. According to his description, Ghost Mother Injia was terrifying, at least in his understanding, and the map contained a chilling note. I still can't figure out whether she is still human. Both Wei Wuxing and Ghost Mother Injia became powerful through this underground martial world, but they should still be human. However, Wei Wuxing's description of Ghost Mother Injia was quite horrifying. Duan Yun couldn't help but recall his own past experiences. He had once, on such a morning, been in an outhouse at the mountain villa and encountered a woman peeping. The woman was wearing a green dress, holding a basket, and asked if he intended to violate her. Naturally, he refused. Unexpectedly, the woman was outraged, and the basket in her hand was as cutting as a blood dripper, but she was still no match for him. Eventually, the woman's dress descended like an abyss, attempting to swallow him, but he fiercely attacked her using the breaking body sword chi column. The woman claimed to be under Ghost Mother's command at that time, and now that he thought about it, she indeed didn't seem quite human. Especially the things beneath her dress, he still couldn't figure out the structure to this day. Wei Wuxing's map reminded Duan Yun of this incident, leading him to think of another matter. Back then, after the woman in the green dress claimed to be under Ghost Mother's command, he wrote in his little notebook that he had to kill Ghost Mother and her entire family, yet he ended up getting so caught up in other things that he actually forgot about it. All right. I remembered it all. Ghost Mother Injia, with her mysterious comings and goings, had equally elusive followers, but Wei Wuxing was clearly interested in her and her river, so he had done some research, discovering 2 of her lairs. Duan Yun flipped through his little notebook filled with names, summarizing. Although many names had been crossed out, there were still quite a few left, and he was determined not to miss a single one. Thus, Duan Yun decided that the most pressing matter was to kill Thunder God and Mother first, then find Ghost Mother Injia and her entire family. This had to be expedited. If it weren't for Wei Wuxing's map reminding him, he would have almost forgotten about this enemy, allowing them to escape justice. Such a thing young hero Duan would never allow. At this moment, Duan Yun was filled with fighting spirit. Yes, he had been slack recently. Whether it was killing Wei Wuxing or dealing with a group of cowards, they had all come to him, and he hadn't taken the initiative to attack. To those unaware, it might seem like Duan Yun had given up, only knowing how to be in heroic land and engage in group fights. Duan Yun decided that once the river project was completed, he would start going out, making the names in the little notebook complete, letting the entire martial world experience pain. It must be said, Ziyu fully demonstrated her hydraulic talent in this river excavation project. During the spring equinox, this canal was already completed. Open the gates. Release the water. With Ziyu waving and shouting, the first sluice gate slowly opened, and the vast lake water flowed into the dugout canal. On this day, Wangchun City was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and cheers filled the air. Last year, during the new year, most people here were living good lives, so the festivities were unprecedentedly lively. Truly a time when no bones lay frozen on the road and every household had meat. But at this moment, when lake water started flowing through the canal, the entire city was more lively and jubilant than during the new year. Groups of people chased the water, running and cheering, and as they ran, some women even took off their clothes and waved their pants, shouting, "Young hero Duan, Purple Jade Female Knight, we admire you two as a couple." Duan Yun was surprised. Where did these people come from? Ziyu was puzzled, They should be farmers, right? Are all farmers this wild? Duan Yun was surprised. Duan Yun did not realize how significant this event was for people who had farmed for so long. Even in a fertile place like Wangchun City, farmers fought to the death for half an acre of water. Even losing their lives wasn't uncommon. Because that half an acre of water was life or death for the farmers, what was given to them before was truly insufficient. And now, not having to pay grain allowed them to live well, and the flow of canal water was enabling even better living conditions. According to many farmers, it was simply like an immortal's life, something they didn't dare to imagine before but could now truly dream of. That's why so many people chased the water, and why there were so many genuinely shouting, "Young hero Duan, purple jade female knight, we admire you two as a couple." Hearing such words, both Feng Linger and Shining felt a bit overwhelmed. Honestly, the competition for the title of Jade Girl had always been between the two of them. After all, Lei Ying and Littleine really didn't count as people, and although Tang Wanwan was scheming, she was new and had a mentor-student barrier with Duan Yun. Ziyu, on this front, behaved quite low-key. Rather, she seemed to have always been immersed in her own world, either working on the canal or brewing a new light novel. But at this moment, when this group of rogues passionately called Ziyu and Duan Yun a couple, both Feng Linger and Shining felt like treasures had been stolen in secret. Do all light novel writers scheme like this with such dirty tricks? Clearly, seeing the canal take shape and the cheers of the masses, those deeply involved in this project were overwhelmingly happy. Look, there on the sluice gate, Duan Yun and Ziyu were joyfully hugging each other in celebration. From this angle, they really resemble a pair of damn lovebirds. Feng Linger couldn't help but curse. Damn it, playing dirty. As a result, at this time, Duan Yun and Ziyu celebrated even more enthusiastically. One moment the man was on the woman's shoulders cheering, the next the woman was on the man's shoulders celebrating. Good heavens, they were riding each other. Yet at this moment they seemed above reproach. Because this success was indeed achieved by the two of them working hand in hand, even though they were practically glued together and their bodies were almost negative distance apart, it was still just their celebration. Don't worry. It's merely their simple way of expressing joy, Feng Linger muttered as she watched the scene. Shining said with a headache, "You really don't care? Why should I care?" Feng Linger herself didn't notice that while she was intensely watching Duan Yun and Ziyu clapping hands in celebration, her hair was fluttering, subtly glowing green, as if she was about to go berserk. Spring in Wangchun City always arrives earlier than in other places. You can tell this from the couples, both male and male, who gather to admire the river scenery. They gaze at each other tenderly, then turn to the picturesque landscape, their eyes filled with the spirit of spring. Wangchun City is never short of river views, but now 70% of the charm of Wangchun's river scenery can be found here. This canal was forcibly dug by human effort. Because the river is wide and the water is calm, wild ducks have long been wandering in flocks, and the willows along the shore have sprouted green buds, swaying in the wind like the most enchanting women. Those with business acumen had already launched their painted pleasure boats, and the brothel girls, whose businesses weren't doing so well, found themselves in high demand once on the boats. Duan Yun and Feng Linger were drifting down on a small boat. Feng Linger wore red clothing, but the red-faced sword on her back was even more dazzling than her attire. The girls on the painted pleasure boats had half their clothes off, ready to entice the handsome men aboard. But at the sight of Feng Linger, they frustratedly put their clothes back on, more properly than even respectable families would. The main reason was that the woman with the sword on the boat was too radiant, making them all look drab and dull by comparison. Could she be here to cause trouble? The guests who were having a good time on the boat saw Duan Yun and Feng Linger, and when they turned back to the girls they had called, they suddenly found them unattractive. Just then, there was a splash, and the small boat suddenly lifted its bow, speeding forward with astonishing swiftness, sending up a spray of water and drawing exclamations. Wow, a master! This must be at least decades of power. But they look just around 20. Just like me, looking youthful. Duan Yun channeled his true chi, and under the influence, the small boat sprinted like an arrow, breaking through waves with the wind. With a swoosh, a bend appeared in the river ahead, and Duan-Yun turned his true chi, causing the entire boat to drift across, raising water spray and gusts of wind. The gusts swept across the riverbank, lifting a woman's skirt onto her face, causing her to scream. Meanwhile, Feng Linger toppled into Duan-Yun's arms, exclaiming, "You're so fast, you're so bad." After admiring the scenery of the canal, Duan-Yun and Feng Linger disembarked. The moment they stepped ashore, the small boat exploded into pieces with a crack. Using a small wooden boat like a speedboat with occasional drifts, it was impressive it lasted till now. Duan-Yun extended his hand, activated the Beiming divine skill, and collected the boat's fragments into his hand, forming a bundle which he then gifted to a farmer for firewood. Caring for the canal environment is everyone's responsibility. Duan-Yun's outing with Feng Linger was not just for the river scenery. It was merely their starting point. They were setting out on a long journey to kill the Thunder God and Mother. Where the Thunder God and Mother might be, Duan-Yun still didn't know. But he wasn't entirely clueless. If you were being pursued and gravely injured, where would you run? Duan-Yun once asked. Home, the Murong brothers replied. If there was any place in the world the Thunder God and Mother could call home, it would undoubtedly be in Lijiao. The blade seed of 10-layered spring rain that Duan-Yun planted inside the Thunder God and Mother, adapted from the Jade Sword in Jade Sword True Understanding, should detect her presence once he was within a certain range. Thus, he decided to take a stroll through Lijiao, while seeming to increase the range of the blade seed sensing. In this situation, riding little Yin or Laying would be best, but unfortunately, both were out to kill the turtle woman. Regarding his traveling companion, Duan-Yun's first thought was naturally of Shadow Ying, who could fly with him. But once again, Feng Linger volunteered. Feng Linger had her own reasons. She was managing all the affairs of the city and was practically the city lord. Such burdens couldn't always fall on her, they should be rotated. Shining, having lain stiff in the coffin for so long, should be her turn to take on this task. Shining mocked, "Can you fly? If you can fly, then go." Unexpectedly, Feng Linger indeed could fly. Feng Linger suddenly had a green glint in her eyes, and as her hair flew upwards, it stretched out, shooting skyward in tufts. As her hair shot upward, so did she, truly flying. She flew quickly and steadily, leaving even Shun Ying conceding admiration. Shin Ying couldn't help but think this upward flying method using hair seemed to have borrowed from her silken thread flying technique, but Brother Murong thought of another sister, Fu Wanjun. She was the one known as the white-haired witch, and now Feng Linger shared a unique resemblance to her. Originally a flower-fanatic red face, she now added the white-haired witch moniker, hinting at madness upon madness, causing Brother Murong some fear of her extremity. What's happened to my sister lately to shock her like this? With Feng Linger flying, Shun Ying couldn't speak against it anymore. Thus, the one who journeyed with Duan-Yun was the flower-fanatic red face, Feng Linger. Lijiao, where the snow-capped mountains remain eternally unchanged. Spring arrives later here, with vast expanses of grasslands yet to turn green as streams formed by melting snow emit a chill. Duan-Yun and Feng Linger rode horses across the grassland, feeling the majestic openness lifting their spirits. This was indeed a sight not commonly seen in the provinces of Yun and Yu. For a moment, Duan-Yun and Feng Linger felt that growing up in such an environment would surely broaden one's mind. The two people had only walked for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn when they heard a fierce argument. "This pile of cow dung is mine." "Mine? You're talking nonsense. I know my cow's dung by smell, you try it. There's a taste of blood in this dung. Exactly from my cow's prolapsed bowel." "Nonsense. A prolapse would taste like this? This is clearly my cow's dung." The man took a piece from the pile of cow dung and started chewing, cursing. "Screw you. Can't you understand? What, you not only want to steal my cow dung but also screw my mother? I'll kill you." With that, the two started fighting. The fight was a typical wrestling match. Both of them were roughly equal in size and skill, neither gaining an advantage. At this point, they started rolling down the slope while fighting. Suddenly, there was a splat, and the pile of cow dung was squashed and scattered everywhere. My cow dung! Mine! There was a loud squelch. When this sound was heard, both Duan Yun and Feng Linger were startled. It was because one of the men below suddenly pulled out a dagger and stabbed it into the other man's belly. The other man was also shocked, and with a fearful look, he retaliated by pulling out his own dagger and stabbed it into the other man's belly, twisting it. In a frenzy, both sides stabbed each other, creating at least a dozen holes in their bodies, with their intestines exposed. At this point, one of the men realized and said anxiously, "Oh no, I'm going to die. I'm going to die too." At this moment, both of them showed regret on their faces. Over a pile of cow dung, is it really necessary? It's a real slap in my face. Duan Yun rode over and remarked sarcastically. He had just praised the locals for their broad-mindedness, and now two locals nearly killed each other over cow dung. The man on the left was coughing up blood and crying, "I saw the cow dung disappear and couldn't hold back. I regret it so much." "Me too. My wife is waiting for me at home. I regret it. You even bought me milk last time. Kind person, please go to the tent 10 miles away. Find someone to help collect my corpse. I'm sure I'll be..." Ha! Duan Yun felt powerless to complain, as fingertip thunder had started to release. With a sizzling sound accompanied by the scent of roasted intestines, both men discovered they were no longer bleeding. With a quick motion from Duan Yun, he stuffed their intestines back into their bellies. After a bit more work, Duan Yun stepped back and said, "You can take care of yourselves now." After saying this, he rode away with Feng Linger. The two men hadn't yet recovered from their shock, and one murmured, "Immortal? Monster? Jade Emperor? We're saved." Chenshua Town. This town, once destroyed by the Thunder God and Mother sect, covered with human skin kites, has now regained vitality and expanded its size, almost becoming a small city. From afar, Duan Yun and Feng Linger could see half of the town old, half new, clearly recently expanded. The town became lively again, not only because young hero Duan eliminated the Thunder God and Mother sect, allowing displaced residents to return, but also because it is the base of the Great Hero Storytelling sect. The Great Hero Storytelling sect both tells stories and fights, renowned for storytelling and strong fists, naturally becoming a local power. This power, even though far from Wangchun City, still learns from the heroic land's rich experience. Duan Yun was unaware that someone had gone to Wangchun City to learn and implemented similar policies here, such as no protection fees, no chaos allowed here. Though it can't match Wangchun City's achievements, it learned some essentials. It can be said this is another new heroic land, attracting many people like Wangchun City, thus expanding its scale. Now Duan Yun is still wearing a vest, claiming to be Yi Fan, a businessman from Yun State, and Feng Linger is his bodyguard and lover. This is a typical wealthy man setup, and Duan Yun plays the part well. After all, he's truly wealthy now. His robe may look understated, but those with an eye for quality recognize it immediately, and the jade ring on his finger could easily purchase several shops. Yet along the way, no one dared to rob them, because the ones who appear to be fat sheep are often the most dangerous, so says the wisdom of the martial world. More importantly, the merchant and bodyguard both have extraordinary-looking weapons, clearly not just for show. This time, Duan Yun and Feng Linger are here to cause trouble for their enemy. Best to keep a low profile, especially fearing the Thunder God and Mother might escape. This small town below the Snow Mountain is the last station before entering the mountain. Ever since the Thunder God and Mother sect was wiped out, many people returned to Old Mother Mountain to gather goods. This mountain is rich in ginseng, and many have gotten wealthy, making the town even livelier. But as soon as Duan Yun and Feng Linger reached the town's inn, they found people inside sighing. "Boss, let's just retreat this time, so we don't lose our lives. This ginseng has become a monster. It can't be dealt with. Lousy. Do you know what my favorite saying was when I was fishing in High State? What? The bigger the waves, the more expensive the fish. If this ginseng has turned into a monster, isn't that a great opportunity?" Think about it, ordinary ginseng sells for a high price. How many years would the monster one fetch? Duan Yun and Feng Linger, listening, found the matter truly strange. Recently, two groups of ginseng gatherers went into the mountain and encountered trouble. One barely escaped and claimed the mountain is haunted. They had just picked a large ginseng when it instead captured their people. No one believed it. There's been talk of monsters in the mountain, but never of ginseng capturing people. It contradicts common sense. Everyone thought it was a scare tactic by gatherers because once in the mountain it's a competition. And the person who said this is a local gatherer living on the town's west side. After returning home, he went mad, behaving strangely. This gatherer had friends and family, and just days ago his good brother, fearing for him, went to see but found the door locked tightly. His brother got angry immediately. They've been close brothers since childhood, wore the same pants when poor, and when they couldn't afford a wife, even shared one. Ignoring him was disrespect, so the brother went through the house's secret door. Inside, the brother found the gatherer bedridden, lifeless, looking like he'd been sucked by a fox spirit. Realizing something was wrong, he approached and heard the gatherer whisper, "Get away! Be careful of the Sioux." "What Sioux? Why are you so weak?" His appearance frightened the brother, deciding to fetch more people for help. As he retreated, he stepped on something. Looking down, he saw part of a ginseng root, or the root of a huge ginseng, except ginseng roots aren't typically that large. In that moment, the brother understood his friend's warning was not about weakness but about this root. Beware of the root. As he lifted his foot, the root moved, earth churned, and out sprang a giant person-sized ginseng. The giant ginseng waved its roots, trying to grab him, scaring the brother into shouting. Luckily, a great hero storyteller was passing by. Hearing the cries, rushed in to witness the scene. Indeed, there was a ginseng monster. Though the storyteller was present, the ginseng monster tried to tackle both. Fortunately, the storyteller had gathered companions. Now several showed up. Seeing it was outnumbered, the ginseng monster fled. The matter was confirmed since the monster ran through the streets, witnessed by at least 100 people. Though a chilling tale, Duan Yun smiles with interest. When discussing this, the inn's gatherers mentioned the word earthquake. That is, before the strange happenings, thunder often rumbles underground, while thunder usually descends from above. Even in Liuzhou, thunder isn't often heard from below. Does this suggest the individual in his little notebook is here? After hearing the gatherer's story, Duan Yun couldn't help but ask, "Could you please tell me where exactly you heard the thunderous sound?" The ginseng gatherers glanced cautiously at Duan Yun and his companion and asked, "Where are you from?" Duan Yun raised his hand, revealing a top-grade jade thumb ring on his right index finger, and said, "I'm from U State, and I'm wealthy." Upon hearing wealthy and from U State, the gatherers' expressions changed. U State, I know it. That's the place full of men fooling around, wearing nothing but white socks on the streets. As they spoke, they couldn't help but glance at Duan Yun. What a damned, deep-seated prejudice. Duan Yun had no energy to retort and quickly said, "That's not me. I just like doing business." We can see that. Traveling with such a beautiful woman, clearly not a bearded man. There's no way he's one of them. In fact, this was after Feng Linger had uglified herself. Duan Yun said, "Do you have any good goods? I like ginseng. I like great tonics." The leader of the ginseng gatherers couldn't help but laugh and said, "Got it. We all get it. Such love between you and your lady. You obviously need great tonics." Feng Linger didn't have a high opinion of these gatherers at first, but after hearing them speak like this, she found them somewhat more agreeable. At this point, Duan Yun had already taken on the demeanor of a wealthy merchant, putting his arm around Feng Linger and saying, "Show me the goods, but let me warn you, I only want the good stuff. Rest assured, absolutely top-notch. Absolutely top-notch." The ginseng gatherers did not try to deceive him and brought out the oldest ginseng they had. Naturally, they boasted extravagantly about its virtues, claiming it was the ultimate tonic. and that even a eunuch left with just a strand could stand firm. Duan Yun bought it very generously. With this business transaction complete, the conversation became relaxed and easygoing. As for Duan Yun's questions, they answered everything they knew. The thunder you mentioned is naturally underground thunder, and finding out where it is isn't easy, but us folks who frequent the mountains have a general idea. It should be at the site of the Thunder God and Mother Sect's temple. You see, after the Thunder God and Mother Sect was wiped out by Mr. Duan, by Duan the hero, they died a terrible death. Such a place is heavy with resentment. It's only normal for it to be haunted. Oh, this mountain, it's really tough to get to. Upon hearing this, Duan Yun had roughly figured out the direction. He just needed to enter the mountain and get closer there. If the Thunder God and Mother were indeed in the vicinity, he should be able to sense the seed of pain. When the time comes, he must give them a big surprise. Rest for a night, set out tomorrow morning, Duan Yun said, holding Feng Linger. Feng Linger teased, but it's still broad daylight now. Can't a guy take a break during the day? Especially after buying some great tonic ginseng. Saying that, the two went back to their room under the envious eyes of others. Back in the room, Duan Yun actually started brewing the ginseng. Feng Linger, shocked, said, "You wouldn't really drink that stuff to do that with me, would you?" Duan Yun said, "I just want to taste the flavor." Feng Linger quickly covered her chest and said, "I refuse to let you taste. If you try to do that without marrying me properly, my mom will give you a hard time." Duan Yun pointed at the pot, looking at her covered chest, and said, "I meant tasting the ginseng, not, that." Feng Linger suddenly tightened her grip on her chest and said, "Even thinking about it counts. It's perverted." Duan Yun, the girls he's encountered, really defy all expectations. They do defy expectations. At the Thunder God and Mother Sect, on the Cliff of Reflection, the mist was thick. The place was shrouded year-round in fog and miasma, with only white snow and black mud seemingly the only two colors present, making the entire cliff bottom frightfully desolate and cold, as if not of this world. But at this moment, the mud at the bottom of the cliff was churning, as if something was writhing within. Then came a thunderous sound. That was the rumbling of thunder. The mud at the cliff bottom heaved with the thunder, forming into spherical shapes. With a pop, one mud sphere broke, revealing a spherical lightning bolt inside. The thunder continued to sink, plunging into the mud, and inside the mud were countless of these spherical lightning bolts. They were encased in mud on the outside, so little lightning escaped at a glance. Further down, the number of these spherical lightning bolts decreased, and the mud's density lessened, forming water traces. In the water, a palace loomed faintly. This palace was black and blue, its surface emitting a metallic cold gleam. This was truly a palace entirely cast out of metal, looking, at a glance, like a divine artifact. With a rumble, a massive spherical lightning bolt appeared above the metal palace, rolling. At a glance, this spherical lightning bolt faintly bore the outlines of human features. If some Taoist practitioners saw this scene, they might mistake it for a supreme being's primordial spirit. The massive spherical lightning flashed above the palace, while inside the palace, there was a different scene. The palace interior was also of this black-blue metal, with walls covered in words. These words resembled some kind of runes, looking particularly odd here. In the widest hall, the floor was covered with black mud. At this moment, the mud was constantly surging, as if alive, resembling black serpents. A woman was suspended in mid-air, while the black serpents kept surging towards her, seeking to invade her. This maiden had fair skin and delicate features, considered a beauty, yet on closer inspection, she appeared extraordinarily strange. Her fair skin occasionally sprouted white roots, and there was faintly a human face on her shoulders. At a glance, she seemed both human and resembling ginseng. Or rather, she seemed to have merged with a giant ginseng, becoming something neither human nor ginseng. Suddenly, the flower-like Xian Di on her forehead trembled, and the flower on Xian Di quivered wildly. At this moment, Thunder God and Mother, with her upturned nose, walked out from behind. To Duan Yun, her ugly face was comparable to that of an ugly sow, showing a sinister smile. Truly, when misfortune turns to blessing, I never expected that after being heavily injured and arriving here, I would find such a treasure like you. This young girl was naturally Yu Shuangshuang, the Red House young master. That day, when she was struck down by Duan Yun at the reflection cliff and thought she was doomed, a ginseng spirit suddenly appeared. The ginseng spirit wanted to take over her body, conducting a fusion with her in a bizarre way. Initially, Yu Shuangshuang only felt as if she was pregnant, bearing something large, with her belly enormously protruding. That was because the ginseng spirit's half-body and ginseng roots were penetrating into her body. Yu Shuangshuang knew very well that the being wanted to devour her, completely taking over her body and mind. But Yu Shuangshuang was familiar with this sort of thing. Previously, when she accidentally fell off a cliff, she encountered Lung Fenghuang, the 3,000 miles of frost. That one also wanted to drain her dry. But relying on her supreme will against Duan Yun and her powerful Xian Di talent, she turned disaster into a blessing, learning the reverse heaven gang skills, and instead drained Lang Fenghuang completely. At this moment, Yu Shuangshuang couldn't help but seriously suspect she was the legendary daughter of divine destiny. The so-called child of divine destiny, or daughter of divine destiny, often refers to those exceptionally fortunate individuals who, even when facing dire situations, manage to turn them around and continuously reap rewards, the most famous scenario being having miraculous encounters after falling off a cliff. And this was already her second time. Hence, at this moment Yu Shuangshuang was filled with determination. As the daughter of divine destiny, she would not die. Just like what's written in idle books, do not underestimate a poor girl. The daughter of divine destiny will always rise against the odds, eventually reaching the highest peak, fulfilling her lifelong aspirations. Old demon Duan, I am determined on you. Relying on this supreme will, Yu Shuangshuang activated the reverse heaven gang skills, beginning to absorb the ginseng spirit. It must be said, the ginseng spirit, true to its nature as a great tonic-turned spirit, when she began absorbing it, her previously fatal injuries were effectively healing, and it even faintly made her stronger. The ginseng spirit realized this as well, but when it wanted to leave, it was already too late. It had delved too deep. Its roots had already penetrated most of her flesh, and coupled with the terrifying suction of the reverse heaven gang skills, the ginseng spirit couldn't extricate itself. Yet the ginseng spirit was still a spirit creature, proficient in absorption itself. So the two began a mutual absorption. The struggle lasted for a long time, truly a prolonged battle, but Yu Shuangshuang held the upper hand. It was clear from the shriveled face of the ginseng spirit that it was about to be completely absorbed. Just when Yu Shuangshuang thought victory was in sight, potentially returning to the martial world, soon to continue fulfilling her aspiration against old demon Duan, a thundercloud descended. Afterwards, she was trapped here. Thunder God and Mother looked at the trembling petals on Yu Shuangshuang's forehead, exuberantly saying, so fragrant, this is Xian Di indeed. Then, she looked at Yu Shuangshuang and remarked, since you were born with Xian Di, you and I share some fate, and apart from being too ugly, you are quite a good medicinal material. Yu Shuangshuang, looking at her pig-like face, burst out in anger. Who are you calling ugly? You dead, ugly fat woman. Ah! The mud surged upward, covering her body, with some even trying to bore into her flesh, causing her to cry out in pain. Thunder God and Mother did not get angry, but smiled and said, what a great medicine! Truly great medicine indeed. The reason Thunder God and Mother returned here was because her roots were still here. Like ostriches nurtured in the clouds, these ginseng spirits were also cultivated by her with the art of thunder and lightning. These ginseng spirits were excellent tonics, able to heal her terrible injuries. She did not expect to stumble upon Yu Shuangshuang. Though the ginseng spirit was highly nourishing, it was far from enough to heal her wounds. But this woman could, because the other was born with Xian Di and had wonderfully merged with her oldest and grandest ginseng spirit. The potency of the tonic could be said to have ascended several levels. Truly divine providence. As long as she merged with her and took over this body, she wouldn't need to painstakingly hide away for decades or centuries to heal. She had a chance to counterattack. Today was the day for her to consume the great medicine. Thunder God and Mother's body trembled and merged with the mud. As Yu Shuangxuang glanced over, if not for a pair of terrifying eyes amidst the mud, she wouldn't have been able to locate Thunder God and Mother at all. Ah! Amidst the sound of thunder and lightning, a lot of the mud inside the temple became spherical, which forced her mouth wide open as something entered her body. This was similar to when the ginseng spirit wanted to merge with her, but even more domineering and irresistible. For a moment, Yu Shuangxuang couldn't even control her own dantian. You want to use the same trick again? You're still too green. At this point, Yu Shuangxuang's eyes changed. They became cold and emotionless, with lightning flashing, eerily similar to the gaze of Thunder God and Mother. Thunder God and Mother had begun medicating herself. Yu Shuangxuang struggled, feeling more pain and weakness the more she fought. At this moment, a face appeared on her left shoulder, echoing the ginseng face on her right. By now, she had 3 faces. Give up. You don't have the power to fight me. Yu Shuangxuang's eyelids grew heavy, feeling it was impossible to disobey those words. She felt so tired, sleepy, wanting to sleep. Yes, struggling was meaningless. Why not just give in? Her eyelids slowly closed, and the face on her left shoulder revealed a joyful and sinister smile, appearing to have everything calculated. But suddenly, Yu Shuangxuang closed her eyes only to suddenly open them wide again. The face on her left shoulder froze and asked, "Why? Why aren't you asleep yet?" "I can't sleep," Yu Shuangxuang replied. "But you're so tired. How can you not fall asleep?" Thunder God and Mother asked in surprise. "I haven't bathed. I haven't washed my hair. I haven't put on my red wedding dress. I haven't put on my red wedding dress to marry old demon Duan," Yu Shuangxuang screamed. Her frenzied state startled Thunder God and Mother. The key was when she mentioned marry old demon Duan. Thunder God and Mother's heart skipped a beat. The name Old Demon Duan was already her nightmare. Reverse Heaven Gang skills. Activate, Yu Shuangxuang shouted. In this instant, Yu Shuangxuang's dantian and heart pounded like a drum, giving the impression they might explode from such intense beating. And with this, she regained control over her body. Then, she began to fiercely absorb. Whoever dares to stop me from marrying old demon Duan, even the immortal will be dealt with. Amid Yu Shuangxuang's mad cry, her gaze filled with determination. Her entire face began to resemble her true form more and more, while the face with the upturned nose on her left shoulder grew slightly blurred. "Stop acting so insolently in front of me." Amidst the crackling thunder, the mud rapidly surged toward Yu Shuangxuang. Spherical mud bundles wrapped in lightning, like pills, were forcibly stuffed into Yu Shuangxuang's mouth. "I'm full. Can't eat any more." "Then give me your body." "No." Clearly, they were locked in a fierce struggle once more. Duan Yun and Fenglinger had arrived at Little Lei City, where the Thunder God and Mother sect was located. After he destroyed this sect, it was already in ruins. Previously, a few people were reluctant to leave, wanting to continue living here, but the enormous allure of the outside towns drove them away one after another. As a result, nobody had lived here for a long time. The houses were dilapidated, and many had collapsed under the heavy snow, with only ginseng collectors occasionally stopping by. Just then, Duan Yun paused, pressing his forehead, and said, "I sensed it." Inside Little Lei City, there were no traces of life left, a place of deathly silence. Duan Yun walked on the road, his gaze focused. This was the first time he felt the painful blade seed, and he discovered it was extremely active. This seed originally came from him. Now it was signaling him as if returning to its ancestor. And he was like a signal tower receiving this signal. You could say that the signal now was not only active but also fluctuating greatly. Duan Yun followed the sensation and continued walking, unknowingly arriving at the depths of the Thunder God and Mother sect. This was where the sect leader of Thunder God and Mother sect practiced. The hall ahead was where he fought the ugly adversary, the sect leader of Thunder God and Mother sect. The hall was full of holes, and the roof was gone, traces of the battle he had left. Though there was clearly no one here anymore, the black-painted mouth of the hall, like the mouth of a specter, looked a bit eerie. Just like those ginseng gatherers said, with so many people dying miserably here before, and situated in the snow mountain, it could be said to be a standard haunted site. Duan Yun was not afraid of ghosts. After all, he was planning to kill the ghost mother's entire family later, so he continued walking inside. At this moment, Linger suddenly said, "There's something." She watched the entrance of the hall, concentrated and alert. Duan Yun raised an eyebrow. The next moment, he heard a series of squeaking sounds, and 2 mice ran out. Duan Yun was about to tease her for not being Tang Wan Wan with the heavenly sensitive saint body, yet so sensitive, when suddenly a fishy wind blew. A white tiger suddenly darted out of the house. This white tiger only had fur on its head. Its body was smooth and hairless. It could be called a white tiger in every sense. Its speed was extremely fast, rushing out like lightning and instantly pouncing towards Duan Yun and Linger. Duan Yun and the others had encountered tigers before, even ate roasted tiger meat twice, but a tiger this fast was their first encounter. With a swoosh, the red-faced sword was unsheathed. The sword light like a rainbow. The snowflakes stirred up on the ground were instantly cut in half. Along with the snow, the white tiger was also cut into 2. Duan Yun could even see its lair being precisely split. One could say he had somewhat underestimated Linger lately. Her swordsmanship's precision was almost catching up to him. With a swoosh, the red-faced sword returned to its sheath, the remaining sword chi forming a barrier, sweeping away the flying tiger blood to avoid staining their clothes. But the next moment, Linger voiced her confusion. The white tiger's blood was much less than she had imagined. Then a more bizarre thing happened. The divided white tiger ran swiftly to the left and right after landing, making Duan Yun think of a children's song. Duan Yun swayed slightly, grabbed the tail of the left white tiger, and lifted it, yet it continued running madly. This half-running white tiger made Duan Yun feel that this wasn't a real tiger but rather a mechanical tiger. The other half of the white tiger ran far away in an instant. When Linger chased after it, it had already jumped off the cliff. The half-white tiger in Duan Yun's hand ran crazily for several moments before gradually stopping, assuming a death posture. One could say this tiger was strange, hairless on its body, with little blood inside, yet its life force was frighteningly strong, as it could run frantically when split in 2. Duan Yun looked at the corpse on the ground, somewhat perplexed. Linger said, "This tiger is odd." Duan Yun nodded, saying, "I once encountered a lion on this mountain. The child's bones in its belly guided me." Linger asked in confusion, "Do you think this tiger and that lion, along with ginseng, have turned into spirits?" Suddenly, Duan Yun's finger pressed a part of the tiger's corpse, and with a popping sound, a string of red electric light emerged. Duan Yun pondered, spirit, mutation. He suddenly realized that in this ancient world, people like to use spirit to describe powerful and strangely behaving animals. But from his perspective, it seemed more like a mutation. This tiger had strange demon electricity inside which transformed it. This also explained that they had come to the right place. The Thunder God and Mother were here. Her core secrets might also be here. After killing you, your secrets will be mine, young hero. Duan Yun and Linger came to the cliff where the half-white tiger jumped down. Duan Yun pressed a finger to his brow, feeling the aura of the painful blade seed growing more turbulent. He looked at the cold mist below and said, "I went down there before." At the time he had just fought with the sect leader of Thunder God and Mother sect, then encountered a Red House girl. This woman, known to be exceptional in the Red House. After his great battle with the sect leader of Thunder God and Mother sect, his true chi was greatly depleted, but not just any ordinary sect grandmaster or expert could challenge him. Yet he was suppressed by this woman to the point he could barely breathe. Fortunately, He outsmarted her and threw her to the bottom of the cliff. He even descended the cliff later, only saw her leg shattered on the glacier. But because the mist below was too dense, he didn't find the corpse. He didn't foresee that there would be a sequel to this place, as if they were filming a series here. Duan-yun could sense that the thing was at the bottom of the cliff below. With that, the two glanced at each other and began their descent. They jumped off nearly simultaneously. If seen by someone, they might think they were a couple eloping tragically. The two figures initially plummeted rapidly downwards. Suddenly, one placed their left foot over the right, and hair fluttered. Both involuntarily slowed down their speed. In the snow mountain region, it was already frigid, and by the middle of the cliff, the temperature was even lower, with numerous ice spikes on the cliff walls. These ice spikes were extremely sharp, and for Duan-yun and Fenglinger, possessing true Qi protective body meant these spikes would be hard to injure them. Yet they did not wish to directly confront them. It's a human instinct. Seeing these ice spikes often evokes the imagery of one's body being impaled and hung from them. Moreover, if the speed was fast enough, it wasn't impossible. The red house girl thrown down by Duan-yun earlier, despite her not lacking in strength, ended with her leg pierced by the ice spike, effectively crippling her leg. Just like the last time they descended, the bottom of the cliff was deathly silent. Duan-yun and Fenglinger continued to fall, feeling a profound sense of isolation, as if they were the only two lives in this dark world. Once, many people had posed the hypothetical question. If the world was so lonely that only you and a beautiful woman remained, what would you do? The most common answer was a relationship, while netizens in Chengdu wondered why the other two men couldn't be included. Duan-yun didn't know why this question crossed his mind, or perhaps, in a solitary environment, it's easy to have all sorts of forbidden thoughts. Just like a form of torture called confinement. This punishment involved locking a person in a place devoid of sunlight, immobilizing their acupoints, sometimes even placing a quilt beneath them so they can't hear a sound, nor feel anything tangible and hard. After spending some time confined like this, even the toughest individual would submit. That's the terror of isolation. But fortunately for them, they were two people. They could still move, they even felt the excitement of adventure. Duan-yun and Fenglinger didn't know how long this descent lasted, until with two soft thuds, they finally reached the bottom of the cliff. The world at the base of the cliff was dimly lit. Even without the cold mist, nothing could be seen. This place was already a desolate land rarely visited by people. The bottom of the cliff was mud, which hadn't frozen solid in such a cold world, and was quite strange in its own right. Duan-yun activated his room pupil technique. Setting a path forward, his glance involuntarily swept over Fenglinger's clothing, and inwardly he let out a wow of admiration. It's said that in Yuzhu Manor, among all the women, aside from Shadow Ying, they're all capable of making him wow. He sometimes even doubted whether practicing 12 layers of spring rain attracted voluptuous women. No, Xining is an exception. Hey! Do you think there's a possibility? The extraordinary wisdom in Duan-yun's mind flickered, contemplating a possibility. At that moment, Fenglinger said, "Do you hear something?" Before reaching the bottom, the howling wind of the cliff sounded like ghostly wails. Duan-yun frowned slightly, listening carefully, discovering that the wailing sound was mixed with other noises. How to describe this sound? It's like in a horror movie when a radio without power suddenly emits voices. The sound was fuzzy, mixed with static, indistinct, as if someone was pleading for help, or as if a specter was masquerading as a human to lure people in. Duan-yun said, "Let's check it out." The two tread through the mud, moving quickly. By this time, they could distinctly feel the mud becoming softer, and the static-laden wind noise growing more pronounced. Suddenly, Duan-yun halted. In this part of the cliff base, echoes of the wind could be heard, mingled with the static, as if there were an eerie radio speaking human words. A soft thud. The sound was faint, but Duan-yun still caught it. With a flicker, he arrived at a section of the muddy base, stepping down with his foot. With a pop, a globular mass of mud flew out, swirling mid-air without falling. Fenglinger initially thought Duan-yun used true Qi to manipulate the mud this way, But she soon realized it wasn't so. The globular mud was floating there on its own, without falling. Then with a pop, Duan-Yun broke the mud open, revealing a sphere of electric light spinning out. At this, the noise got louder. Turns out this noise was emanating from the mud. "Is there electricity in this mud?" Feng Linger exclaimed. Duan-Yun looked down at the mud underfoot, saying, "We might need to go down." "Huh." Feng Linger hadn't yet reacted when Duan-Yun pressed her shoulder, sinking further downwards. The environment darkened. Breath momentarily suffocated. Feng Linger quickly held her breath, practicing breathing control, only to be surprised to discover the world beneath the mud wasn't completely dark. Beneath the mud, there were several spherical mud masses, some stationary, others spinning, exuding electric light. The reason this mud wasn't pitch black was because of the sparking electric light. "What on earth is this place?" Rumbling. Now the sound of thunder echoed aloud. Feng Linger felt the tremors beneath her feet, confirming the thunder came from below. This was likely the ground thunder mentioned by the ginseng digger. Crackle. Her body continued to sink further down, along with Duan-Yun. Gradually, she noticed the mud had become not so thick anymore, her body feeling significantly lighter. Soon after, she sensed the presence of water. Half mud, half water. The water emitted a faint glow, not pitch black, but with the floating mud, everything appeared blurred. In the next moment, Feng Linger shivered, because she saw a person. A series of elongated figures stood in the water, watching her and Duan-Yun. Evidently, Duan-Yun too noticed this, and instead of being afraid, he curiously approached one of them. Upon closer inspection, Feng Linger realized they weren't humans, but ginseng. These ginseng roots were so long and large that at first glance, one would mistake them for humans, tall, skinny people. Ginseng spirit. This was the first thought that appeared in both Duan-Yun and Feng Linger's minds. A ginseng spirit once fled from Chenchua town, and not even the great hero storytelling sex masters could capture it. Yet in this mud, there were many of these ginseng spirits. Some had their faces blurred, others had grown human features, appearing especially eerie in such an environment. Each of these ginseng spirits had red strings wrapped around their necks, from which looked like water-drowned ghosts. Ziyu, known for writing popular fiction, occasionally infused with a touch of horror. But even in the mind of such a fiction writer, it would be hard to conceive of such an image. The scene before them couldn't match the chaos of a ghostly land filled with the laments of myriad spirits, yet it carried a profound terror. Feng Linger had never seen such a sight and struggled to describe it. However, what Duan-Yun was reminded of was a laboratory. In this kind of mud, in this kind of water, these hanging ginseng made him think of human laboratories from some horror games. In those laboratories, varied human specimens were used for experiments. Some immersed in water, others encased in glass vessels, some hanging, others placed on an operating table. Though clearly dead, they had the potential to suddenly awaken, bringing great horror in the games. And the scene before him bore a stark resemblance. It truly looked like a dreadful laboratory, with these human-like ginseng as the experimental subjects. At this moment, the pain seeds within his sea of consciousness provoked intense fluctuations once more. He held Feng Linger's hand, continuing to sink downward. The dimly lit waters, strange swirling mud, those ghost-like ginseng spirits wrapped in red strings, formed a terrifying scene reminiscent of a ghostly land. Yet at that moment, Feng Linger wished to linger a little longer in such an environment. It wasn't because she was a pervert with an innate penchant for such fearsome places. It was because Duan-Yun held her hand, always holding it, as if in this world there were only the two of them. She truly liked this feeling, really liked it. In the dim water, the elongated human ginseng spirit moved with the eerie noise, resembling a ghostly land. Suddenly, breaking body sword chi erupted within Duan-Yun. The sword chi formed a barrier, standing between him and Feng Linger. Without hesitation, Feng Linger's red-faced sword moved slightly, also spreading sword chi in front of her. By this time, countless ball-shaped mud masses were already rushing towards them. As these mud balls encountered their sword chi, they instantly exploded into swirling lightning. Even though the two used sword chi to block most of the lightning, their hair stood on end regardless. At this moment, the spherical lightning had formed a sea of electricity, crackling spectacularly in the water. Duan Yun, forming a two-finger gesture, shot out breaking body sword chi to break open a path, and he and Feng Linger followed this crack downward. His perception of the pain blade seed had initially grown increasingly strong, indicating his proximity to the other party. However, the sudden surge of the ball-shaped lightning sea disrupted his senses. Yet, as he continued to descend, these lightning entities gradually diminished. These things were somewhat like a rainstorm, always arriving in bursts. At this point, in his perception, the vibrations of the pain blade seed were becoming more and more apparent. This indicated their increasing proximity to the Thunder God and Mother. Suddenly, Duan Yun looked towards the unknown above. The room pupil technique cleared the muddy vision in the water, and he vaguely saw the outline of a building above. He quickly swam in that direction, and with a splash, the two had emerged above the water. By this time, the building's appearance was very clear. Half submerged in the water, half in the mud, it was a palace forged from metal. From here, the metallic luster emanating from its surface was still visible. This sudden appearance of a palace at the bottom of the cliff filled Duan Yun and Feng Linger with a sense of fear. This fear was instinctive. Human fears are varied, many originating from the unknown, others from disparity or irrationality. And this palace evidently belonged to the latter category. It's like renting a villa for a vacation and accidentally opening a door to find a tomb inside. This palace evoked that kind of feeling. This cliff's bottom, a place perhaps untouched by humans for countless years, was expected to be desolate, devoid of even insects. Yet now there was a palace here, a palace constructed from metal. Duan Yun had previously conversed with Mo sect elder Li Dakin, discovering that many crafts in this world, including carpentry and metallurgy, surpassed his expectations. At least they were significantly more advanced than a typical ancient-styled world. However, the craftsmanship of this metal palace was extraordinarily high. Even the Mo sect masters of construction would struggle to create something of this level, because the entire palace appeared seamless, or at least with no visible joins, looking like a unified whole. The specifications of the Thunder God and Mother's palace were exceptionally high indeed. Such a fine thing truly should belong to this young hero. Duan Yun gazed at the building, touched his brow and said, "It's inside." Feng Linger's hand had already grasped the sword hilt. Facing such a scene, the red-faced heroine was still somewhat tense. Because whether it was the human ginseng spirit in the mud and the ball-shaped surroundings, or this mysterious and bizarre metal palace before them, they exceeded her imagination. She even secretly pinched herself hard to confirm this wasn't a dream. Ever since entering the cliff bottom, she felt everything experienced was like a surreal dream. This palace had only one large door. The door had a slight gap, the only visible one they could see. Duan Yun approached the gap, allowed the breaking body sword chi to flow directly from his chest, and pushed forward, widening the gap in the metal door substantially. Once it was wide enough for a person to pass, Duan Yun and Feng Linger entered inside. The interior of the metal palace was also entirely made of metal. The space here was not dark, as the walls and ceiling were embedded with twinkling treasure beads. These beads appeared like eyes watching you, invoking a sense of discomfort. This was a large hall with a deep corridor to the side. Duan Yun and Feng Linger walked along this corridor. On the walls of the corridor, some characters appeared intermittently. No, to be precise, they were symbols. For they recognized none of them. Unlike a Taoist scrawling runes where you might recognize a few characters, these were unrecognizable, or rather, they felt devoid of any humane touch, as if they didn't belong to this world. At this moment, the frequency of the gem above's flickering increased slightly, and Feng Linger looked up, as if the eyes were blinking. Duan Yun had a similar impression, thinking to himself, "Are your eyes dry with all this blinking?" Ahead, some metal sculptures appeared one after another. Most of these sculptures were humanoid, but with unusual heads, as if wearing eye masks significantly larger than the eyes. Honestly, Duan Yun thought they resembled the dark Tong Dawei somewhat, or reminiscent of the Sangsingui bronzes he'd seen in his past life. Duan Yun placed his fingers on a humanoid sculpture, explored it closely, and found it was indeed copper. With his dual mastery of sword and saber, and the spoils from subduing demons, he had some insight into metal materials. He could discern that this was indeed copper. The entire palace, along with these sculptures, can be said to be made of copper. This truly can be considered a world full of copper. Inside the passage, an eerie silence prevailed, with no trace of life, resembling the corridors within ancient tombs. No, ancient tombs usually have some burial items like the remains of animals or even people. But here there is nothing, only copper. Rumble, rumble. Suddenly, sounds emerged from the previously silent passage, as if a giant were frantically striking the walls. At this point in the passage, numerous images of blindfolded faces appeared on the walls. A glance made it seem like countless blindfolded Tong Dawei were staring at you, giving Duan Yun goosebumps. Go! Duan Yun suddenly quickened his pace, for he had detected the exact location of the pain blade seed. In Duan Yun's perception, it was as if it were about to explode. Turning a corner in the passage, a beautiful courtyard appeared. Blossoms fell like rain in the courtyard, and the stream babbled gently, much like an immortal realm. Even the most beautiful courtyard in Jiangnan might not compare. Though just a moment ago everything was copper, this courtyard now seemed surreal in its contrast. Stepping inside felt like entering another world. However, Duan Yun and Fenglinger had no time to appreciate the scenery. They followed the winding stone path into the courtyard. Beyond the courtyard, it was copper all over again. The copper formed room after room. The rooms all looked the same, with identical height, doors, and circular windows like they were copied and pasted. Standing in front of these rooms, one couldn't help feeling lost like in a maze. Yet Duan Yun's steps were light, quickly arriving at one of the room's doors and entered. The room was small, visible at a glance, yet at the end was a very dark passage. They had already seen all the rooms were constructed the same way, like exact copies. It's hard to imagine anyone in this world achieving such craftsmanship. The reason Duan Yun chose this room was all thanks to the pain blade seed. Without the signals from the pain blade seed, this maze-like set of rooms would have taken him considerable time. At this moment, the thumping sound was back. The room was like a big horn, amplifying the sound, creating an oppressive atmosphere. The duo quickly entered the passageway at the room's end. This passage, not too long, revealed a wide view after about 100 steps. A towering grand hall came into sight. The hall, at first glance, was also beautiful, with flower trees in full bloom with purple blossoms, appearing dreamlike. But upon closer inspection, you'd find it wasn't truly beautiful. Beneath the flower trees lay thick muck. The exposed tree roots resembled snakes. At this moment, the muck was surging. As they surged, they transformed into balls, as if countless invisible dung beetles were rolling them toward a certain spot. Duan Yun and Fenglinger utilized their movement techniques, sweeping toward the direction of these mud balls. After passing through a misty area, they saw a person. A woman. That woman was being held aloft by the surging mud. Mud balls continuously stuffed her mouth, while she kept expelling them from her rear, resembling a surreal torment of eating and excreting balls. This torment seemed harsher than Sisyphus eternally pushing stones uphill. Suddenly, the woman glanced at them. Then a voice sounded, "He's here, we can't fight anymore. Prioritize internal matters before external. Let's deal with him." Duan Yun's ears twitched, and he immediately recognized the voice's owner. Thunder God and Mother. Does Thunder God and Mother now embody this woman? You're right, we can't fight anymore. My wish is near. The mud balls stopped entering her mouth, and she simply watched Duan Yun, suddenly shouting, "Assault! My dream!" Duan Yun instantly realized and said, "It's you, the mad woman." When Duan Yun first entered, he felt the woman looked familiar, and with her repeated cries, he remembered. This is the Red House madwoman he once threw off the cliff. What a coincidence! Though Duan-Yun didn't know why Thunder God and Mother were inside her, this was good news for Duan-Yun. Kill them all. Killing them all would solve it. Remarkably, this Red House madwoman had some fortune, surviving a cliff fall. Quite an adventure. As Duan-Yun's fighting spirit surged, he suddenly glanced at Feng Linger beside him and found her hair billowing, with her fighting spirit rising even faster. Is she ready? What Duan-Yun didn't know was this woman's intense gaze and calling incited her greatly. Through the woman's ravenous eyes, she even envisioned her riding Duan-Yun. No way. Never. This provocation made Feng Linger's fighting spirit soar. Did you know? During your absence, I thought of you day and night. The Red House girl gazed at Duan-Yun, eccentrically declared. As she spoke, the muck below her feet formed into a lotus shape, carrying her forward. Think of your mom. Feng Linger leapt, the red-faced sword already unsheathed. The sword body, red as a rose, illuminated her streaming green-tinted hair, exuding a breathtaking beauty. Plum Blossom Falls. The red sword body emitted bright sword light, slicing downward, splashing out sword chi like plum blossoms, akin to a floral rain. Where did this mad woman come from? Stopping my love. Yu Shuang extended a hand. The muck beneath her feet surged upwards, clashing with the red sword chi. With a boom, the air rippled in circles. Sword chi and mud collapsed together. However, the mud had greater momentum, with enough strength left to sweep toward Feng Linger after halting the sword chi. The muddy lotus petals rotated into virtual shadows, surprisingly sharp as blades. As the muddy lotus passed through, the air seemed shredded into wisps, forming white filaments. Feng Linger's red-faced sword trembled again, the red sword light rippling into a giant sword shape, sweeping forth once more. Flower's revenge. The sword chi swept, forming petals as it rotated violently. The swirling sword chi petals collided with the swirling muddy lotus, producing an even more terrifying momentum. The sword chi and mud clashed, splashing like rain. They landed on the palace's copper walls, resonating like muffled thunder, shaking the entire space. At this moment, Yu Shuang suddenly spoke, "My love!" Despite Feng Linger's sword chi already being fierce and strong, from the start until now, her gaze was fixed on Duan-Yun. Yet, in that instant, Duan-Yun disappeared. With a swishing sound, a blade light suddenly shone from above, incredibly fast. Duan-Yun had dropped a strike from above. This strike showcased Duan-Yun's utmost speed, with a cunning angle. Yu Shuang wavered, creating afterimages. That was the unique Red House movement technique. Even if someone exerted force within one-step range, it wouldn't hit her. But Duan-Yun's blade was faster than crossbow arrow's bolt. With a crisp sound, even though Yu Shuang slightly dodged, the blade still embedded in her left shoulder. With a booming explosion, Duan-Yun plunged with the blade into the ground, bursting the muck, creating a pit. Yu Shuang fell into the muck, staring at Duan-Yun, murmuring obsessively, "You pierce me. I just want you to pierce me. Harder." As she spoke, Duan-Yun suddenly felt a massive force pulling at his blade, like it was about to swallow the blade. Next moment, a face emerged from her shoulder. "You want to possess him? Let me help you." The face on the left shoulder opened its mouth. Yu Shuang extended her left hand, shooting out a red lightning bolt. Duan-Yun's right-hand blade was caught between the opponent's shoulder flesh, so his left-hand blade followed suit, clashing with the lightning. With a loud crack, the red lightning bounced off the blade, splitting into many bolts, scattering everywhere. At first glance, it seemed as if Duan-Yun was controlling the lightning. In fact, this was indeed the work of Duan-Yun's shaking blade skill. With the blade quivering violently from his true chi, the red lightning was dispersed. On one side, Thunder God and Mother assisted Yu Shuang, while on the other, Feng Linger attacked from the rear. The red sword chi surged like a rainbow, directly attacking Yu Shuang's back vulnerability. Almost simultaneously, a ginseng-like white beard suddenly emerged, intertwined together like a massive hand. This big hand not only blocked Feng Linger's fierce sword chi, but also swung back in counterattack, forcing Feng Linger to retreat. At this moment, Duan Yun leaped down, gripping his blade, descending from the opponent's body. "Want to taste my blade, huh?" Golden silk big ring saber. In the instant Duan Yun descended with his blade, the knife embedded in the opponent's shoulder generated a twisting force, flinging the opponent into the air. Bang! 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 Subsequently, the renowned blade fell like a giant iron hammer, crushing both man and blade to the ground, smashing into the wall. The power Duan Yun wielded was immense, and his explosive speed was formidable. At first glance, it resembled a giant green monster rampaging and tossing people around. On the ground, the mud exploded, forming pits, and the walls rippled like waves. In the next moment, Duan Yun's eyes widened with anger, shouting, "Pain! 10-layered spring rain." At that moment, the face on Thunder God and Mother's shoulder changed. "No, don't." That day, although she escaped, the excruciating sword chi left a nightmare, and even after so much time, she sometimes still felt phantom pain. The red sword chi representing pain erupted from the renowned blade, piercing directly into the flesh at the shoulder wound. "Aren't you fond of sucking? I'll let you suck your fill." The renowned blade was no longer in a withdrawing stance but delved deeper along with the thread-like sword chi. "Ah! Ah! Ah!" A piercing scream resounded, apparently from one person, but it seemed like 3 mouths wailing in agony, chilling to the bone. Due to the architecture of the palace, the screams echoed, so to one's ear, it sounded as though 1,000 people were howling. Even the face of the ginseng spirit, usually less sensitive to pain, twisted and distorted, scrunching its features together. With the release of the 10-layered spring rain sword chi, Duan Yun could feel the opponent's aura and strength weakening. Yet, in the next moment, a frenzied voice emerged. "So painful! Pain! 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 But I love the pain! Old demon Duan, the pain you give! I'm delighted!" No sooner had the words fallen, her entire aura surged, her face brimming with excitement and frenzy, an intense craving in stark contrast to Thunder God and Mother, and the ginseng spirit face on the shoulder. What kind of ridiculous constitution is this? With a loud boom, "Mud elephant, come!" With Thunder God and Mother's angry roar, the surrounding mud rapidly converged, trying to engulf Duan Yun. Duan Yun's breaking body sword energy spun outward, forming a sword pillar, slicing through the approaching mud. A series of sharp cracks followed. Simultaneously, Thunder God and Mother raised Yu Shuangshuang's left hand, propelling red lightning to whip out, forming a rotating sphere, shattering the 10-layered spring rain sword chi. Duan Yun loosened his grip, and the renowned blade, once tightly connected with the opponent, was withdrawn. By then, the surrounding mud had completely enveloped Yu Shuangshuang, forming a huge mud elephant shape. "Moo!" With a terrifying roar, the mud elephant charged forward. In Duan Yun's eyes, this thing had an astonishing momentum and force, far surpassing any mudspout you could send someone flying with. The landslide from a cataclysm probably couldn't match its formidable power and concentration. Thunder Fire Great Sword. Without hesitation, heroic fire lotus on Duan Yun's chest erupted. Sword chi surged into the sky, forming a thunder fire giant sword. In Feng Linger's eyes, such a scene resembled mythological tales where an immortal wields a divine sword against an ancient beast. With a resounding explosion, the mud elephant and thunder fire great sword collided, creating a terrifying sonic boom. Even a master like Feng Linger was forced to frown tightly. A slight delay in chi circulation left her bleeding from the orifices. The sound was only an appetizer. The true impact came from the ripples formed by the clash of the two forces. Rumble, rumble, whoa, 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 as if countless bolts of thunder crashed down, as if thousands of men with raspy voices were screaming in hoarse agony. The terrifying force followed with mud raging across the space, and several once gargantuan purple flower trees instantly flew up. Yes, they were lush and filled with purple blossoms, but in an instant, they were stripped bare, akin to a balding middle-aged man's wig falling off. No, it was worse. Their trunks were shattered by the blast. Crash la la la. Duan Yun held his blade with both hands, sliding backward. His feet parted the mud like a split tide, followed by a thud as his body slammed heavily onto a wall. The seamless wall instantly formed a human-shaped imprint, the mark surging upward like waves, disappearing somewhere unknown. This seamless metal palace, its metal oddly acquired some liquid attributes. This kind of attribute could actually deflect a significant amount of power. The strength of the recent clash could have even collapsed the palace. As for the so-called battle at the top of the Forbidden City, with Duan Yun's current combat strength, the Forbidden City would need to be rebuilt. Duan Yun crashed heavily against the wall, and the mud elephant was slashed by the Thunderfire Great Sword, igniting and revealing Yu Shuangshuang's figure. At this moment, Yu Shuangshuang's body was sprouting many tendrils like ginseng, indicating her body's further transformation due to her frenzied absorption of the ginseng essence. Seeing Duan Yun looking at her, she shyly squeezed the tendrils between her legs and said, "Don't look! You're bad." Feng Linger, climbing up from the mud with a disheveled appearance, couldn't help but comment, "This freak is seriously off-putting." At this moment, the Thunder God and Mother's face, initially on her shoulder, squeezed down to Yu Shuangshuang's neck. Thus, with one glance, Yu Shuangshuang had a face on her head and another around her neck. The face of the Thunder God and Mother opened its mouth, laughing loudly. "There's a path in the mortal world you don't take, but you charge into hell where there's no door. Here, in my true domain, old demon Duan, what makes you think you can fight me? Lightning! Divine armor!" Swoosh! The surrounding muck swirled, exuding terrifying red electric light, converging once more on Yu Shuangshuang. This time, the electrically charged muck did not form a mud elephant but a giant in armor. At a glance, the armor was entwined with red electric light, as if the other had become a heavenly god wielding lightning. Feng Linger stood there with her sword, feeling an impulse to kneel. Is this the majesty of heavenly might? And Duan Yun, facing such a deity of lightning, seemed so weak. But at this moment, he merely snorted coldly, saying, "You think you're the only one who can transform? Ching! Little you! Come out!" The white silk female boxer and the black silk female sword immortal appeared simultaneously, stirring up a gale. The surrounding mud seemed to fear their presence, retreating swiftly. Previously, Feng Linger had seen Duan Yun's Dharma image, but whether it was the white silk female boxer or the black silk female sword immortal, their height was at most a mere 10 feet. This time, they leaped to a height of 30 feet, and their presence, originally imposing, now seemed even larger. Squeak, squeak. Similarly, dazzling electric light surrounded and rotated around the two Dharma images. In Feng Linger's eyes, it was like huge thunder and lightning. How dare the firefly compete with the bright moon? The voice of the Thunder God and Mother rang out, and instantly, a thunderbolt mace appeared in the hand of the lightning-clad Divine General. Red electric light enwrapped the Divine Mace like a red blood dragon, crashing forward together with the Divine Mace. At nearly the same moment, Duan Yun and the two Dharma images moved. His left hand wielded the Huangshan golden sword, igniting with thunder fire, while his right fist roared like a dragon. The Jade Sword Immortal also held the Thunder Fire Great Sword, with Qing's fists like dragon heads, charging together. In the blink of an eye, both sides clashed again. The red Divine Mace struck, with red lightning tearing through space, almost rending the Dharma images of the Jade Sword Immortal and the female boxer. Duan Yun's body flew out like a kite with broken strings, causing terrifying explosions one after another. Even utilizing the rotational deflection force of the spring rain blade energy, he was severely wounded, with his heels and elbows scraped, bleeding and swollen. On the other hand, the manic laughter of the Thunder God and Mother sounded, "Ha ha ha! You think you can face me head-on? Last time, It was just because I was careless and didn't dodge. Ah, I'll soon catch him. At this moment, another female voice sounded. Catch! After this voice, there was another voice like that of a bull. Shut up! Shut up! The voices of the Thunder God and Mother and Yu Shuang sounded simultaneously, silencing the bull-like voice. At this point, the body of the lightning-clad divine general shuddered, as if startled. This was because, at this moment, Duan Yun's voice had already sounded. Extraordinary wisdom! What are you doing? How could my Dharma image be overshadowed by these evil demons? Damn it, damn it! I command you to resolve everything. With a loud boom, the two Dharma images, previously torn apart by the red lightning, reappeared. Instantly, past martial arts insights flashed through Duan Yun's sea of consciousness, especially those pertaining to Dharma images, changing repeatedly in his mind. Then he looked at the lightning-clad divine general, its formation details swiftly passing by, like a fleeting glimpse. I understand now. The reason this Dharma image was stronger was because it was more tangible, more substantial. It was forged from this muck and the unique red lightning of the Thunder God and Mother, like constructing a building with steel-reinforced concrete, making it more solid than his Dharma image. Break for me! With Duan Yun's frenzied shout, his true chi, death energy, sword chi, saber chi, demon electricity, heroic fire, fist power, and finger strength surged upwards, entering the two Dharma images. This is the unparalleled prodigy of martial arts, mastering sword, saber, fist, and kick. How could my elemental formation of Dharma image be inferior to yours? As Duan Yun spread his hands wide, all the martial chi force he commanded surged upwards, forming a multicolored column of energy. Almost simultaneously, little Yu and Qing's Dharma images began to fuse, integrating with this energy. At this moment, the light shone like a rainbow. In the eyes of Feng Linger and the Thunder God and Mother, the fusing Dharma image underwent a qualitative transformation. How to describe this feeling? It's like a baby growing its first tooth, or new shoots sprouting from bare branches. A true life rhythmically coming into being. A strange thought even popped into Feng Linger's mind. Duan Yun birthed a child. The Thunder God and Mother and Yu Shuang clearly noticed the change, and without hesitation, their thunderbolt mace struck again. The attack was more powerful and forceful than before. Indeed, if Duan Yun sought to give birth to this Dharma image like a child, they intended to abort it. Crush it. Boom! The terrifying thunderbolt mace crashed down, branching out countless red currents, shredding everything in its path, yet unable to advance further, because at that moment, a ghostly blue divine sword and a fist stopped it. Fat Ian Xiangdi. With Duan Yun's voice, Qing and Little Yu had fully completed their fusion. Their well-defined figures overlapped, with their masks and bodies becoming clear from overlapping shadows. White silk and black silk re-encircled like coiling rainbows, forming a configuration of white silk on the left leg and black silk on the right. Their faces became even more beautiful and captivating, combining Little Yu's cold allure with Qing's vibrant freshness. The new Dharma image now held a sword in one hand and a fist in the other, as if descended from the divine. Kill! Duan Yun's sword finger pointed, and lightning coiled around the Dharma image, swelling larger and higher, sweeping its divine sword upwards. With this sweep, the sword light and electric light broke the dawn, dazzling and bright. The red thunderbolt mace and the blue divine sword collided continuously, like two thunder dragons gnawing at each other. With a thundering sound, blue and red electric light flung apart briefly, tilting the body of the Thunder God and Mother's lightning-clad divine general. In that tilt, a fist found its way in. That was Duan Yun's Dharma image's fist, a simple uppercut carrying terrifying dragon-like power. The body of the lightning-clad divine general was blasted high into the air, along with the shared body of the Thunder God and Mother and Yu Shuang. Lu Mountain ascending dragon dominance. With Duan Yun's furious roar, his fist dipped, surging upwards. A thunder dragon erupted from both him and his Dharma image, terrifyingly powerful. I am the unparalleled martial arts prodigy. Lu Mountain ascending dragon dominance. With Duan Yun's furious roar, his fist dipped, surging upwards. A thunder dragon erupted from both him and his Dharma image, terrifyingly powerful. I am the unparalleled martial arts prodigy. This dragon fist shot into the sky, and Duan Yun's originally blue lightning had now turned white. The purest white. The red lightning armor of the Thunder God and Mother's divine general Dharma image was torn open, revealing Yu Shuangshuang's figure within. Visibly, the Thunder God and Mother's face, which was previously at Yu Shuangshuang's neck, had completely moved to her face, so at a glance, it looked like she had two faces. Yu Shuangshuang, do you still want to mate with him? The voice of Thunder God and Mother. Yes. Good. Let's unify our thoughts. In the next moment, the expressions on the two faces became identical. With a crisp pop, Yu Shuangshuang's body broke open a hole, and from it, red lightning burst out and fused with flesh. The lightning spun, hooked onto the fragmented pieces of the lightning armor, and pulled them in. With a boom, the red lightning rippled out in waves. The torn red lightning armor was reforged, and pushed Duan Yun and the Dharma image away. At a glance, the red lightning looked like a swarm of snakes, constantly undulating. Duan Yun focused his spirit, steadied his stance, and charged forward once more with the Dharma image. The two Dharma images clashed again, causing a commotion like ancient beasts, with overlapping force like ocean waves. Feng Linger seized the opportunity to attack with two swords, but could only use sword chi to defend. For a moment, she felt like a lone boat in a storm, easily overwhelmed by this powerful wave. The entire unified metal palace also trembled violently, its walls surging like waves to absorb the force, but it was beginning to buckle, because the waves overlapped heavily, resembling creases in skin. With a crisp sound, the densely packed folds couldn't bear the burden and a crack appeared. This was the first crack in the metal palace, soon followed by a second, third. From above, the entire palace seemed to have suffered a strong and massive shock, trembling at high frequency. Suddenly, with a rush, a geyser of juices erupted from the center of the palace, where Duan Yun and the Thunder God and Mother were fighting. The juice mixed with petals, surprisingly pink and purple. On this side, the battle between Duan Yun and Thunder God and Mother Yu Shuangshuang had reached a fevered pitch. This was not just a battle between people, but also between Dharma images. After unifying their thoughts, the Thunder God and Mother and Yu Shuangshuang's Dharma image became stronger and more sinister, the lightning on the armor like red snakes. Meanwhile, Duan Yun's Dharma image remained half black silk, half white, resembling half light and half dark moon, sun and moon shining together. At a glance, it was comparable to a beautiful maiden battling a tentacle monster. With unified thoughts and home advantage, the Thunder God and Mother and Yu Shuangshuang shook off their previous disadvantage and rallied, but unfortunately, they quickly fell into a new disadvantage. Because Duan Yun and his Dharma image were too versatile. The Dharma image's left hand wielded the immortal sword with white lightning, extremely sharp, while the right hand's fist was incredibly fierce, each punch accompanied by dragon roars and tiger growls, the surrounding air surging like dragons. This was only two hands. The Dharma image's black silk left foot occasionally shot toe sword, while the white silk right foot kicked out toe strength. At this moment, the Dharma image's toe strength burst forth, forming a snow-white torrent. With a snap, because the Dharma image of the Thunder God and Mother Yu Shuangshuang had been pushed into a corner by Duan Yun's Dharma image, this toe strength was very insidious and sudden, striking the navel of the Lightning Divine General. In the next instant, the Lightning Divine General's Dharma image knelt abruptly, and water burst out from its crotch. This toe strength was naturally the purest flirtatious toe strength, and an ordinary martial artist hit by this move could die from urination on the spot. And the Dharma image Lightning Divine General also urinated vehemently. The torrential urine was likely water from the sediment, and the ferocity of the urination tore through the sediment at its crotch. The instant the crotch was torn, Yu Shuangshuang's body with two faces was revealed from inside. Both faces simultaneously showed expressions of terror, and in the next moment, with a pop, the muddy soil at the crotch coalesced, drawing them back in. After Duan landed a successful hit, he launched a relentless assault. As the thunder sword of his Dharma image pierced the shoulder of the opposing Dharma image, the Dharma image's left hand discarded the sword and joined the right hand in a forward grab, executing a wrestling move. The unified thoughts of Yu Shuang and Thunder God and Mother only felt the world spin, and with a boom, they and their Dharma image were heavily smashed into the ground. The Divine General's Dharma image's neck twisted, and the lightning helmet was thrown off, revealing the mixture of mud and red lightning inside. At this point, the Thunder God and Mother shouted, "Old Demon Duan, you're forcing me. Papa Papa." A dense breaking of earth sounds erupted. Around the lightning armor, countless white tendrils sprouted. These white tendrils, along with the red lightning, quickly entangled Duan and the Dharma image's hands. Visibly, as these white tendrils spread, the third face on the shoulder, the human ginseng spirit's face, rapidly shriveled, turned black, looking just like a man drained by the red house girl. It must be said, these white tendrils were remarkably pliable. Even though Duan exerted his force and the Dharma image strained to shake free, they couldn't break away at the moment. At this time, Feng Linger had emerged from the mud, wielding the red face sword, fiercely hacking at these white tendrils. The white tendrils carried a strange bounce, deflecting most of her sword chi. Even though some white tendrils were severed, they quickly regenerated and sprouted anew. After a chaotic hacking session, Linger couldn't help but exclaim, "Why do they increase the more I cut?" "Step aside first," Duan shouted. 3 elements returned to the origin. A massive pillar of energy surged into the sky, as if intending to stir the clouds and storm the heavens. Simultaneously, 3 pillars of energy emerged from the top of the Thunder God and Divine General. Among these 3 pillars, 2 were bright and 1 was dim. The vibrant colors naturally belonged to Yu Shuang and Thunder God and Mother, while the dim one was the ginseng spirits. The essence of the ginseng spirit was being absorbed, affecting even its destiny. Thunder God and Mother and Yu Shuang hadn't yet grasped the situation when they saw Duan towering energy pillar transformed into a giant hand, grasping their energy pillars. Holding it tightly, then it vigorously rubbed up and down, causing the gathered destiny pillars to ignite flames and the smoke to dissipate. Activating the 3 elements returned to the origin is not very convenient. It requires a period of mental accumulation in the sea of consciousness, colloquially called the startup time. But at this moment, because the opponent clung tightly without letting go, it inadvertently provided him the opportunity for such accumulation. With a fierce poke from Duan giant hand, the destiny of Yu Shuang, Thunder God and Mother, and the ginseng spirit began to be refined. The weakest, the ginseng spirit, faced the brunt, nearly invisible from being scorched by the flames. Next were Yu Shuang and Thunder God and Mother's turns. Though they couldn't feel physical harm or reaction, what they saw before them filled them with dread, as if they were being twisted by that giant hand. For a moment, Linger was also somewhat shocked. What kind of giant hand is this? And what technique is this? In fact, she hadn't noticed that a pillar of energy had also emerged from her crown, giving her a sense of clarity. Thunder God and Mother were the first to respond, saying, "It's destiny. He's disrupting our destiny. How can a mere mortal master such a technique? Quick, withdraw." At this moment, she pressed her crown fiercely, intending to gather her spirits and stabilize her destiny. But it was already too late. The giant hand instantaneously morphed into a shadow, moving countless times in an instant, causing the destiny pillar of the 2 to tilt and collapse. Duan mind focused. His destiny giant hand had returned to his brow. Seeing their destiny pillars collapsed, Yu Shuang and Thunder God and Mother were filled with terror. But the next moment, they noticed nothing had changed. Ha ha ha! A mere mortal, thinking he can change my destiny? Destiny is an esoteric art, currently useless. Cough cough. As she spoke, this revered Thunder God and Mother, worshipped for generations, was unexpectedly choked by her own saliva. immediately followed by Yu Shuangshuang's bizarre scream. I've caught my breath, Yu Shuangshuang shouted. Don't panic. I excel in unblocking energy. Saying that, a segment of ginseng whisk turned and attempted to unblock the breath caught in Yu Shuangshuang's stomach. This obstruction was exceedingly severe, as if a bloodthirsty auger or tapeworm was violently spinning in her stomach. Thunder God and Mother could barely endure, yet Yu Shuangshuang, who reveled in pain, felt both pain and delight, unable to suppress a soft hum. But she knew now wasn't the time for enjoyment, because she was engaged in battle with the man she cherished dearly. He indeed lived up to the man she most desired, fearsomely strong, with the risk of turning desire into sheer illusion if careless. As a result, just as the white whisk manipulated by Thunder God and Mother entered her stomach and stirred, it suddenly snapped back with a pop, thrusting into Thunder God and Mother's nostril. Thunder God and Mother, struck by the whisk in her nostril, couldn't resist a massive sneeze. Upon that mighty sneeze, their complexions changed dramatically. The originally caught true chi was now triggered by the sneeze, erupting within, spreading to their organs. In an instant, they felt their internal meridians and blood vessels twisting and entwining painfully. The pain wasn't the most terrifying thing. The truly horrifying matter was the disruption in the flow of their destiny. This disruption sharply weakened the power within them and their Dharma image. It's out! Duan Yun let out a furious roar, breaking free from his constraints alongside the Dharma image. Next came a fierce knee strike, hitting in the midsection of the Thunder God and Mother and Yu Shuangshuang's Dharma image. Struck, the Thunder God and Divine General's Dharma image bowed its head, causing its helmet to fall off, and a large cracked section of its head entered Duan Yun's sight. In the next instant, he maneuvered the Dharma image, and the Dharma image's jade hands had already grasped the crack on the opponent's head. Next followed a swift yank. The current Dharma image had lost the ethereal quality of the jade sword immortal, resembling more a brutal girl capable of tearing skulls apart with bare hands. No! 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 With the screams of the Thunder God and Mother, Yu Shuangshuang, and the ginseng spirit, the head of the Thunder Divine General Dharma image was completely torn open. After the rift was torn open, Duan Yun and the Dharma image increased their force, so the rift continued to spread downwards until, with a ripping sound, it was completely split in half. After transforming into halves, both the flowing silt and the red demon electricity lost their luster, revealing Yu Shuangshuang's body with 3 faces. Yu Shuangshuang's body was still wrapped in a layer of silt, with white whiskers and electricity emerging from inside, appearing tight. Yet in front of Duan Yun's enormous and violent Dharma image, it looked so small and helpless. Release them! Coming! As soon as Duan Yun's voice fell, Feng Linger leapt down from above and stabbed her sword into the silt enclosing Yu Shuangshuang's body. Next came a lift, a fierce lift, with a cracking sound, akin to a shell being peeled from a crayfish. Yu Shuangshuang's body flew out from the silt like a shelled lobster. With a popping sound, it blasted. The right hand of Duan Yun's Dharma image had already extended out, gripping Yu Shuangshuang's body with 3 faces fiercely. The grip was terrifying, as evident from the instant swelling of Yu Shuangshuang's exposed head. It was the compressive force from the fierce grip, causing her originally petite head to swell like a cook's. Then, as the palm released, there came a slam. With a thunderous bang, Yu Shuangshuang's body was slammed against the wall like a piece of dough. Then, both fists of Duan Yun and the Dharma image turned into shadows. DD. Brutal fists pounded upon the opponent, creating terrifying sonic booms, leaving Feng Linger to activate true chi to cover her ears for protection. Otherwise, she would bleed from the 7 orifices again. It could be said that she had never bled so much from the 7 orifices throughout her life. The originally connected wall surged like waves, the cracks on it expanding rapidly and spreading outward. As the last punch fell, Yu Shuangshuang's entire body became very thin as a meat patty. Yet she and the Thunder God and Mother were still alive. They had obsessions in their hearts, hence they didn't die, while the ginseng spirit had been completely absorbed. But Duan Yun's offensive hadn't stopped. Sword come. At once, Duan Yun and the Dharma image simultaneously extended their hands, and the Thunder Immortal Sword transformed into a stream of light, landing in the hand of the Dharma image. No! Don't! Conciliate! No violation! Wrong! Both faces, both mouths cried out simultaneously, filled with endless regret. Duan Yun remained silent, his arm muscles bulging, making a throwing motion. Rumble! The incandescent Thunder Immortal Sword left the Dharma image's left hand, accompanied by thunderous roars, hurled forward. With a bang, the Thunder Immortal Sword penetrated Yu Shuangshuang's body, harshly pinning it to the wall. D. As soon as Duan Yun spoke, the Thunder Immortal Sword trembled, exploding with a weighty thunder. Yu Shuangshuang's body, along with her and the Thunder God and Mother's faces, was instantly torn apart, then plunged into electricity, breaking into pieces. The roaring sound of thunder never ceased, yet Duan Yun and Feng Linger felt silence. Because it had been too noisy, too booming before, now even with the persistence of thunderous noise, the surroundings still gave a sense of quiet. Yu Shuangshuang's body mostly turned to ash, including her and the Thunder God and Mother's faces. Of course, some remnants still remained. Under Duan Yun's feet, a half-mouth was left. That was the only somewhat intact fragment of Yu Shuangshuang and the Thunder God and Mother. Even with just half remaining, one could vaguely see their mouths agape in fear, seemingly exclaiming, "Too brutal!" Duan Yun withdrew his sword, and Dharma image followed suit. Finally, both parties took a glance at each other. Duan Yun nodded, and the newly formed, almost tangible Great Thunder Dharma image gradually receded into his body. In Feng Linger's eyes, Duan Yun seemed to have completed a unification with the Dharma image. For some reason, a hint of bitterness unexpectedly arose in her heart. Why am I feeling this way? Could it be that even I am jealous of the Dharma image? At this time, the entire palace was in ruins. The originally seamless metal structure now appeared as if it had been kneaded by invisible giant hands, already warped and misshapen, with cracks appearing in many places. Duan Yun couldn't help but feel a sense of pity. Though this place was bizarre and eerie, this almost seamless metal palace truly could be considered a rare masterpiece of exquisite art. The previously beautiful courtyard was now also in disarray, the flowering trees shattered and mixed with the churned-up mud. Duan Yun looked at this mess, particularly at what seemed to be half the mouth of either the mad woman from the Red House or the Thunder God and Mother, a satisfying feeling welling up from within. That the undying mad woman from the Red House was here, still mingling with the Thunder God and Mother, was both an accident and a pleasant surprise. The feeling of taking down two at once was certainly more exhilarating than killing one at a time. It's a pity the battle didn't give him the chance to absorb their memories. Otherwise, he might have glimpsed some secrets of these evil beings. Whether it was this metal-forged palace, or their almost three-faced forms, both were rare sights in the world. Almost instinctively, Duan Yun looked down at the half-mouth by his foot. The next moment, under Feng Linger's gaze, he extended his magic hand, and with a grasp, that half-mouth was sucked into his palm. He won't even spare half a mouth? Beiming divine skill! At this moment, Duan Yun activated his skill, fiercely drawing it in. To the naked eye, that half-mouth, which was initially somewhat plump, shriveled up in an instant. To Duan Yun's surprise, he truly managed to extract a bit of memory fragments. Normally, he would need to use palm force to draw in someone's brain and connect with their sea of consciousness to view memories. This half-mouth wasn't a brain, yet it bore memories. Is it that my divine skill is miraculous? Or is this half-mouth miraculous? Or perhaps, am I formidable or is this half-mouth formidable? Of course, it's me, young hero, who is formidable. If it were truly formidable, it wouldn't be reduced to just half a mouth. The memories flooded into his mind, very fragmented, and Duan Yun could only see some vague scenes. He saw the snow mountain. It should be the mountain range they are in. In the sky above the mountains, a colossal meteorite suddenly appeared. The meteorite descended, shattering the mountain body and forming a deep valley. In the valley, a treasure light permeated, dazzling like a radiant glow, as if a treasure was about to emerge. Someone chased after the treasure light, but was instantly burned to charcoal. It wasn't actually treasure light, but rather the strangely colored thunderfire. Among them, there was one person who survived the thunderfire, ventured to the deepest part of the treasure light, and then saw a palace. Could it be that the thunder god and mother found this metal palace? No, in those memory fragments, this metal palace seemed like only half a structure. The memories paused again. When reconnected, he only saw the thunder god and mother standing in a room filled with those peculiar writings, with some twisted snakes hanging around the room. Those characters seemed alive, constantly twisting. Thereafter, red lightning began emitting from the thunder god and mother's body as she gazed into the sky, as if searching for something. Suddenly, the half-mouth in Duanyun's hand shouted, "I will become a great hero," then exploded with a pop, shriveling into just a layer of skin. From then on, no more memories could be drawn out. It even stuck to Duanyun's palm like psoriasis. While prying at it, Duanyun mocked, "With just those little memories, you want to become a great hero?" When he couldn't remove it after quite some time, he used a famous blade to pick and lift it off the half-mouth skin. At that moment, the thrilling sensation of splitting two at once hadn't yet faded in Duanyun's heart. He leaped outside the palace once more, commencing a great slaughter. Spirits becoming refined. They're all scourges. Kill! 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 Sword light and blade light ricocheted amidst the mud and water, until he had thoroughly minced those ginseng spirits before Duanyun reluctantly ceased. It must be said, during the slaughter, some ginsengs emitted a blood-like fluid similar to humans, and some let out cries akin to dying groans, showing that if they continued to grow, they might indeed become like the one encountered in Chenshua town, capable of moving and harming people. Thankfully, young hero Duan arrived, ensuring to annihilate their whole clan, leaving none behind. Only then did Duanyun sheath his blade, gradually calming down. He then realized and quipped, "Got too carried away with slaughtering the whole clan. Totally forgot to leave one or two for research, or even soak in wine. No matter, the one in Chenshua town is bigger. Since it escaped, if there's a chance, it can still be captured." At this moment, Duanyun recalled some memory details from when he absorbed the half-mouth. Through those memory fragments, he could roughly understand the emergence of the Thunder God and Mother, and the Thunder God and Mother sect. The heavenly meteorite fell, crashing into the snow mountain. From within the snow mountain erupted treasure light, attracting many nearby people to explore. However, the treasure light was extremely dangerous, likely akin to the treasure light like thunderfire, igniting and killing anyone who made contact. Yet among them, there was one person who survived that treasure light. Duanyun guessed that that should be the Thunder God and Mother. Although the memory was blurry, the outline of her ugly face with an upturned nose was distinct. The Thunder God and Mother passed through the treasure light, arrived inside this palace, and then entered a room. From there, did she learn the secret technique to control thunderfire through those strange runes? Afterward, she established the Thunder God and Mother sect, continuing her divine exploits from heaven to earth. Earlier, the human skin Duanyun cut from Madman Lei indeed bore runes somewhat similar to the texts in this palace. This should be the origin of the so-called thunder language in the martial world. Yet, the palace in my memory only had half. Where did the remaining half come from? The clues break off here. Duanyun was very interested in this fragment of memory, but unfortunately, with only half a piece left, the clues could no longer be dug out. At that moment, Duanyun suddenly remembered a certain detail. In that room full of strange runes, there were also many twisted snakes. Wait, maybe those weren't snakes, but vines. Or tree roots. Yes, tree roots. This palace has a few large trees, so their roots should still be found. Fenglinger hasn't reacted yet. Duanyun quickly returned to the metal palace while saying, "Find the tree roots." Where the trees are, it's precisely the place where Duanyun and his group had just fiercely battled, utter chaos. The The flowering trees had long been uprooted and destroyed, leaving only fragments. Finding some intact root systems won't be easy. Duan Yun thought for a moment and plunged into the mud with a splash. The mud, used by the Thunder God and Mother to form armor, is quite viscous. When inside, the resistance is great, and the key is that it dazzles the eyes, making it hard to see what's actually inside. Fortunately, Duan Yun has practiced pupil skill. Only to see his pupils blaze with fire, sweeping over everything around. These muds, after they churned the waters earlier, were no longer in their original form. But Duan Yun has a hypothesis. The flowering trees were large, and if their roots were deep enough, maybe some parts weren't damaged. And as Duan Yun dived deeper, this hypothesis gradually proved true. The mud here is thicker than expected. The upper segment shows clear signs of disturbance, but from here on, it disappears. Duan Yun didn't know how long he had been diving. In a place as dark as this, one loses a sense of time. Duan Yun kept diving, always using his pupil skill to explore, without blinking an eye. At this moment, he felt his eyes dry up, and he couldn't help but blink twice. Upon blinking, he truly saw something. Tree roots. In this mud, there were numerous tangled tree roots. These roots were affected by the battle just now, merely pulled but not uprooted. In this mud, these tree roots were like twisted snakes, continuously diving into the depths of the mud, somewhat resembling the memory in that half-disc. Duan Yun kept diving. Initially, the surrounding tree roots were scattered, but as he went deeper, the pressure on him increased and those roots gradually gathered together. If the previous tree roots were like many diving snakes, at this time, gathered together, they were more like a dragon diving into an abyss. At this moment, suddenly in the immensely dark mud, there came a burst of light. This light was red, flashing, reminding Duan Yun of the alarm lights from his past life. Or perhaps like the eye of a creature with ill intent. Now, the young hero Duan retained his human's innate fear of the unknown and darkness. But this instinct weakened considerably in the face of his increasingly powerful strength. In the eyes of many people in the martial world, he was no longer human. Duan Yun dived over, eyes lit. There truly was a space there. This space separated from the mud, like a hollow cave, and the flashing scarlet light emitted from within. With a splash, Duan Yun broke free of the mud and jumped down. Below the entrance was a downward-sloping passage. The passage was already engraved with those runes he couldn't quite understand. Initially, he could comprehend the runes on Madman Lei's human skin, besides forcibly understanding with extraordinary wisdom, because those runes indeed bore traces of local script. This should be the result after the Thunder God and Mother localized it. But now, he faced what should be the most primitive version of this script. This is akin to the difference between cooked and raw meat. The distinction is quite large. This passage soon reached an end, and upon entering was a room. This room wasn't too big nor too small, about the size of Yuju Manor's reception hall, with a single glance reaching the other end. Honestly, this place being only this large was somewhat beyond Duan Yun's expectations. At this time, Duan Yun also found the source of the red light. The texts carved into the room were all in red, with the red pulsating like breathing. Duan Yun squinted to see and even felt that the red within these fonts flowed like blood. This should be the place from the half-disc's memory where the Thunder God and Mother realized enlightenment. This red text originally should have covered the room's ceiling, walls, and floor, but many have eroded, and even after scraping off the sticking mud, it remained blurry. The Thunder God and Mother came here and comprehended the red lightning. Now what about him? As a rare cultivation genius, Duan Yun also wanted to give it a try. He stared at these flickering runes, at the red within them, observing very carefully. At first, besides feeling somewhat dazzled, he hadn't any comprehension. Yet suddenly, his breathing became heavier. At that moment, Duan Yun felt his body's blood as if influenced by the strokes of these red texts, followed by its flow. This flow involved not just direction but speed. Starting from the top line of text, Duan Yun looked at, allowing the blood in his body to flow with this rhythm, shifting back and forth. After finishing the first line, he felt somewhat warm all over, couldn't help but take off his clothes. Afterward, followed the second line, third line. Duan-Yun watched faster and faster. Then he heard the pounding heartbeat sound. This heartbeat sound was immense, like beating drums. Duan-Yun only felt his entire bloodstream and meridians influenced by it, as if strongly stimulated, becoming exceptionally active. Right after, a familiar sensation arose. He found that whether it was the blood of the blood vessels or the true qi of the meridians, both started to rotate. This rotation bore some resemblance to the feeling of 12 layers of spring rain stirring demon electricity, but altogether different in rhythm. It's like two breathing techniques from distant regions. Both are breathing, but inside they're entirely different. Duan-Yun gazed at the flickering texts and suddenly felt they were alive. His rotating blood was alive, carrying the cells in his body, too. He even thought these red texts linked together, much akin to circuits. With this sensation appearing, just hearing a series of crackling noises, Duan-Yun felt electricity, distinct from the current generated by 12 layers of spring rain. Crackling. Two rotating red lightning emerged from Duan-Yun's ears, making his ears tickle. Next, the arm, the leg, even the groin. At the instant, red lightning erupted from the groin. With a boom, the room's red text flickered twice fiercely. Then all went out. Duan-Yun suddenly awoke and said, "What the heck?" Just now, during enlightenment, he had entered some mystical realm, resonating with the texts here, about to comprehend more good stuff. But suddenly, this sensation was cut off, just like the red light of the texts. If previously he thought the wall's texts were like countless currents, and the wall was a circuit board, then at this moment it could be said the circuit shorted and the circuit board burnt through. Nevertheless, Duan-Yun wasn't without gain. At least he realized this completely new red electrical light. Duan-Yun snapped his fingers. A cluster of red electrical light emerged. This was completely different from the electricity he used before, for it arose from the blood. So then, I'll call you blood electricity in the future. Duan-Yun wanted to light up these texts again but couldn't elicit any response. And right at this moment the entire house was not large, and the red runes had eroded quite a bit, with a thick layer of silt piled up in the corners of the walls. But when Duan-Yun scraped with sword qi, the silt was cleared away, revealing a stack of gold foil. If it were back when he first entered the martial world, Duan-Yun might have been excited to see such pure gold foil. But now, if it were merely gold foil, it wouldn't elicit much reaction from him. Primarily because the gold and silver moved from the old Gu family residence last time were so abundant that he became numb to it. Fortunately, this wasn't just plain gold foil. There were recordings on it. Duan-Yun reviewed the orthodox hero skills he had just learned, and with blood-colored lightning from his fingertips, the gold foil was illuminated a deep red. There were writings and drawings on it. Unlike the red characters on the walls that Duan-Yun couldn't understand and could only perceive through intuition, he could actually recognize most of these words and pictures. After reading 2 pieces of gold foil, Duan-Yun couldn't help but complain, "Damn, it's a diary." This thunder god and mother was already an improper evil demon, so it's reasonable for her to keep a diary. This gold foil should be used by the thunder god and mother to record events. In her words, as years passed, her understanding of divine electricity deepened, and she would often experience memory loss. The most severe instance was when she couldn't even remember who she was and wandered around until a few vagrants raised her like a pig for 2 days and threw her into a pot to cook. Only then did she recover her memory and zap the vagrants, cooking them like roast meat. After that, the thunder god and mother developed the habit of keeping a diary. The most recorded content in it is how she became the thunder god and mother and inadvertently established the thunder god and mother sect. Duan-Yun did not expect that the broken thread of memory here would have a sequel. The gold foil stated that after comprehending lightning and flying martial arts in the secret chamber, the thunder god and mother instantly understood all the writings in the secret chamber. Then she discovered a secret, that the writings were not only a divine skill secret manual but also a map. A map concerning celestial treasure. This was also why, in the last memory fragment, the thunder god and mother would look up at the sky. Then, relying on the flying god's skill and this map, she flew up to the skies. According to her description, she flew in the sky for nearly a month, dining on the wind and drinking frost, drawing water from the clouds, like a bird without feet. Eventually, her efforts paid off and she found the treasure marked on the map. It was a moon. On the gold foil, the thunder god and mother also depicted the appearance of the moon. It was a full moon, just missing a corner, but in Duan Yun's eyes, the thing looked like a space station. Whether it was due to the material of the gold foil or something else, that moon was filled with a metallic sensation, and most importantly, he saw something resembling a satellite on the upper side of the moon. The gold foil continues to narrate how the thunder god and mother entered that moon, which was the celestial treasure described on the secret chamber map. Inside, the thunder god and mother claimed to have met the Jade Emperor and Queen Mother. Or rather, the Jade Emperor and Queen Mother were merely a representation, because as an ancient person, the thunder god and mother had limited knowledge and couldn't find any other words to describe the things inside the moon. In her words, meeting them was as if seeing the origin and end of the world. Except the Jade Emperor and Queen Mother appeared to be perpetually sleeping, each with a mysterious bronze mask on their faces, not waking up. The thunder god and mother fancied herself as the favored one in the heavenly court, discovered that the writings learned in the secret chamber were also useful inside this celestial treasure. The thunder god and mother began recognizing characters, learning the cultivation techniques inside, during which she discovered another bronze mask. The bronze mask had a strong appeal to her, enticing her to wear it. In the end, the thunder god and mother could not resist the temptation. After she wore the mask, according to her own description, it was as if divine assistance was rendered to her, granting her extraordinary wisdom, allowing her to master certain skills inside the celestial treasure after just a few readings. Of course, the writings inside the celestial treasure were far more esoteric. Many times she'd encounter characters she couldn't recognize and would just skip over them, only reading those she understood. Yet this method of reading indeed enabled her to perceive mysterious techniques. Afterwards, the thunder god and mother became incredibly arrogant, nurturing the thought that with the Jade Emperor and Queen Mother in slumber, she should be master of the sky and earth. The thunder god and mother continued cultivating inside the celestial treasure, but one day, upon waking, she suddenly found herself floating in midair, with the celestial palace treasure nowhere in sight. However, the thunder god and mother felt no discouragement, only considering herself to possess extraordinary wisdom, fully capable of creating her own divine skill, making learning the skills inside completely unnecessary. And within that moon treasure, the thunder god and mother learned a secret technique of thunder striking. It allowed her to integrate her voice into the thunder and lightning. Most of those sounds were her daily soliloquies, like how many farts she released in the clouds today, or when she detonated a thunder in a thundercloud, deriving great pleasure. Of course, there were also recitations of cultivation techniques she recalled, or impromptu thoughts about creating a skill, which she would articulate aloud. Many of these self-created skills were unsuccessful, yet they still merged into the thunder and lightning. But once, as the thunder god and mother was traveling in Liezhou, she unexpectedly discovered a monk holding thunder and brandishing a whip. This was precisely the heavenly thunder whip skill she had created a few days ago. She barely knew how to wield it, but the monk was swinging it expertly. Thunder god and mother asked the monk where this whip technique came from. The monk said that a few nights ago there was a thunderstorm in the sky, and the thunder god from the sky told him about it. It was precisely the time when thunder god and mother created the heavenly thunder whip skill. So, thunder god and mother knew she possessed extraordinary wisdom, for a casually created cultivation technique to be mastered by a mere mortal to the level of divine skill. Immediately, she soared into the sky, surrounded by lightning, revealing her true form before the monk. She told the monk that it wasn't the thunder god passing down the skill, it was her doing it. At most, the thunder god was her son. Afterward, more and more people began thunder listening, and people only knew the thunder god was her son. Hence they called her thunder god and mother. This is also the origin of thunder god and mother sect. As for the divine iron that fell from the sky, it was nothing more than the fragmented gold foil paper that Thunder God and Mother used in the sky to wipe after defecating. Thunder God and Mother liked gold foil because she had a unique technique that could effortlessly turn gold into a piece of paper. This paper could be used for recording or wiping, and sometimes when she didn't have fresh gold foil nearby, she had to use the foil with writing on it. This is also why the Mother's divine iron that fell from the sky sometimes had writing on it. Upon seeing this, Duan-Yun immediately felt the gold foil was unclean. The crux was that this Mother's divine iron he previously collected, thinking it was a great treasure. Damn it! If I knew it was ass-wiping paper, I'd have tormented you more before killing you. By this point, there were only 2 sheets of the gold foil left, and these last 2 sheets, Duan-Yun couldn't understand at all. They were full of gibberish like belly thundering, feeling pregnant, they consider her ugly, she's a god, how can she be ugly? Akin to someone being dumped for being too ugly and going mad due to the shock. But this was enough. Duan-Yun at least knew the whole incident, though missing many details like how she completed half the palace, it was somewhat clear. Duan-Yun turned his gaze back to the illustration of the sky treasure on the gold foil, contextualized with the later description of Jade Emperor and Queen Mother, and couldn't help but exclaim, "Damn it, they're really extraterrestrial beings." Duan-Yun could almost confirm that the Jade Emperor and Queen Mother, referred to by Thunder God and Mother, were likely extraterrestrial beings, and that sky treasure resembling the moon, surrounded by satellites, should be the spaceship of extraterrestrial beings. Unfortunately, according to the records in Thunder God and Mother's gold foil, even she did not know where the extraterrestrial beings went afterward. Duan-Yun cleared away more mud nearby and discovered an amazing find. A bronze mask. Wearing it looked just like the bronze mask of the male homosexual. This mask was probably worn by Thunder God and Mother on the spaceship, akin to divine assistance. However, according to Thunder God and Mother's description, later she stopped wearing it often, partly because she became drastically self-confident, believing she inherently possessed extraordinary wisdom, and the mask was merely an aid, and partly because she thought it caused memory loss. Duan-Yun muttered while holding this bronze mask, "Is this thing really that magical?" He tried it on but found no effect, rather thinking it looked unattractive, more suitable for Murong Brothers' face shape. If Murong Brothers wore this and twisted there, but who knows how many men in Yun's state and Yu's state would be enchanted. Calling it a walking male aphrodisiac wouldn't be an exaggeration. No, why do I also have a bias against Yun's state and Yu's state? Duan-Yun stored the mask away, planning to leave. He had thoroughly plundered this place. Even the remaining text was disrupted and broken by him. Even with his extraordinary wisdom, he couldn't complete the map. Duan-Yun re-entered the muddy chasm, swimming upstream. He hadn't noticed that during this process. A blue light flickered at the eye position of the bronze mask, like a signal light, but it soon disappeared. While ascending through the mud, Duan-Yun continued using the newly comprehended blood lightning. Whenever he comprehended a new cultivation technique, he would behave like this, akin to buying a new skin in a game, and for a long time only playing that character. With a stretch of his hand, the blood-colored lightning burst from the mud like a flying sword, leading him upstream. Compared to the previous true chi lightning, this blood chi lightning was not only a change in color but also more substantial and condensed. How to describe the difference between the two? It's like one is inclined towards air, and the other towards water. By this point, Duan-Yun had mastered the blood lightning to perfection with his extraordinary wisdom. "Transform for me!" With an extension of his hands, red blood lightning emerged instantly from his left hand, while blue lightning from the right. As he clenched his fist, both lightning forces immediately obliterated in his palm. In the next moment, the sound of 2 lightning bolts crackled. Red blood and blue lightning appeared behind his left and right shoulders. These 2 lightning energies expanded suddenly, forming a pair of lightning wings. The wings were red on one side and blue on the other, like a world of ice and fire, quickly carrying Duan-Yun skyward. "I am the sun." Duan-Yun was very pleased with these lightning wings because from then on, he'd have more than one method of flying. The key is, these wings are cool, like purchasing a premium skin. Feng Linger had been diving into the mud searching for tree roots. Without the room pupil technique, it was difficult for her to visualize in the mud, and her efforts were futile. At this point, she realized not only hadn't she found the tree roots, but Duan Yun was also missing. After diving several times without discovering Duan Yun, Feng Linger felt a sense of fear. The chasm floor was already frightening, not to mention the peculiarly eerie metal palace. Now, from one glance, she seemed to be the only person there. The surroundings were frighteningly quiet, and every sound she made echoed back slightly differently. At this point, she had the illusion of a ghost speaking to her. "Duan dog, where are you?" Feng Linger glanced around and couldn't help calling out. The echo reverberated once more. This time, as her voice was quite loud, the echo sounded like there were 7 voices. In Feng Linger's ears, it was as if 7 different women were asking, "Duan dog, where are you?" For a moment, her complexion turned green. She always felt that these 7 echoes were flirting with Duan Yun, since only she could call him Duan dog. Moments later, Feng Linger shook her head to clear her mind, saying, "How can I be jealous of the echo? Being jealous 7 times over." By this point, even Feng Linger found it absurd. She knew she wasn't a magnanimous person and was even a bit petty. But what's wrong with women being a little petty? She usually thought she was perfectly normal, no more than a bit petty, daring to love and hate, but at this moment, she felt she might have an issue. Why do I get jealous so easily? Why do I so readily taste the bitterness of betrayal? The next moment, Feng Linger found the reason, saying, "It's all the Murong brothers' fault," because she worries she might end up less normal than the Murong brothers. She thought she might have been influenced by Murong brothers with their penchant for all things green, or perhaps their bloodline had something in common with hers. But directly cursing that Murong old villain felt improper. Cursing Murong brothers was much easier. So all the blame rested on the Murong brothers. While Feng Linger was lost in thought, she suddenly felt a tremor from the mud beneath her feet. She immediately became alert, drawing her red-faced sword. In her perception, the sensation was akin to some huge creature about to emerge. Could it be some ghostly, fierce beast? She was somewhat scared, recalling Duan Yun again, regretting their decision to search separately, thinking she should have stayed attached to him like wings. Then, there was a loud blast as the mud shattered, and Feng Linger felt blinded by it. When she refocused her vision, amidst the dazzling red and white lightning, Duan Yun was perched mid-air, and those red and white lightning turned out to be his wings. Feng Linger was so stunned she was momentarily speechless. "Not only did you burrow through mud and become an immortal,